Hello, sports fans. Welcome on in. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be a part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I'm Scott Mitchell, filling in for Sean today and yesterday and the day before. I think I got a couple other spots on the show here coming up in the next few months as Sean does his broadcasting duties for the PFL. Anyways, welcome to the show. It's Friday. All that means to me is it's football Friday. It's fun Friday. It's fantastic Friday. So we're going to have a great time today. I know it's not football season. It's always football season. It's always fun on Friday. It's always a football Friday. So great show today. A lot of fun. We're going to talk a little bit with an old ball player from the past, Gifford Nielsen, who was an NFL player, All-American at BYU, and he was one of my childhood heroes. So he's coming on the show. We're going to talk about the Jazz. We're going to talk about the Utes. We're going to talk about the Final Four. We're going to talk about a lot of fun things today because it's Friday, it's sports, and we're here, so why not? Just by way of announcement, just so you know, if you want to listen to us, you can stream us by going on ESPN700sports.com, the ESPN 700 app. It's free. Get it wherever you get any of your apps, or you can go to your smart speaker. Tell it to play ESPN 700, and it will be smart because you've told it to do that. Also, you can get us on YouTube, ESPN 700 Sports, at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. And, of course, you can podcast this also on ESPN700sports.com or the ESPN 700 app. Just search the Sean O'Connell Show, and you'll get all these amazing shows that we have, and you can listen to them in perpetuity. I know, big word right there, out of the box. We're perpetuating on the show already today. Okay, a lot of fun.
It's a family show, Scott.
I know.
Careful with that.
No, let me tell you, I got to be careful how I say it because the words in my head don't necessarily come out of my mouth the way they're supposed to. So I took a chance, and, I hit it.
You hit it. You use it right, too. It's a good job by you.
Yeah, I hit it right.
Of course you did, because you don't mind if people – you said yesterday, you don't mind if people think that you're not very smart, but you are actually a very smart guy.
Right, and I'm the master of mixed metaphors. Like I will use them incorrectly all the time. Yeah, and so it makes sense to me. And why not mesh them together, right? Because then you get even a deeper meaning than what you intended. All right, here's a fun topic. So Martin Kelly, my producer on the Down and Dirty, which you just heard, I'm the warm-up act for the Sean O'Connell Show here. And Martin was asking me a question of what's it like to play after a legend or maybe with a legend. And the saying is you never want to play after a legend. Right? You never want to do that.
No one ever wants to follow a legend.
No one ever wants
to say anyway.
No, you never because
it works out for some people though.
Well, no, yeah, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about does it work out? Doesn't it work out? Let me tell you about my experience in playing with legends, after legends, in between legends, and even because I think this is a really interesting thing to deal with because sometimes it's not fun. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. Not fun. All right, so for me, of course, I was drafted by the Miami Dolphins, and they had a quarterback named Dan Marino. Dan Marino was amazing.
Was he a legend, Scott?
Dan Marino was about as legend.
Okay.
Here's how legendary Dan Marino was. Everyone had a stool in front of their locker, okay, and it was just a stool. It's like the stool you see that guy that does that shines your shoes in the airport. He's just got a little portable stool. You didn't have a back on it. It wasn't a chair. Well, Dan Marino had a chair.
Okay.
And not only he had a chair, but it reclined. It had
gosh.
It
wasn't just a chair.
No, it was a seat. Only guy in the locker room, and on top of it, he didn't have one locker. He had three.
Of course he did.
So they have this nice new locker room, and they put Dan Marino in a corner with with all of his other egos, right? So there's me, myself, and I, right there with that's how legendary Dan Marino was. Now on top of that,
he had a locker for his helmet only. Is that
of course?
Is that what happened there? He just
split
up his equipment in
different days
lockers?
of the week. And speaking of equipment, so you have a laundry bag. and it's one of those mesh bags, and it has like a little clip on the top of it. You throw all your dirty clothes, in your socks and your shorts and your shirt, all the stuff you sweat in, and you throw that in the laundry bin. Marino never did that. Marino, every single day, got a new pair of shorts, a new jock strap, because that's what you wore back in the day, socks, shirt, and they were set out in front of his locker. That's how legendary he was.
So you didn't have to clean clothes because he got new ones.
He didn't have to.
And equipment.
It's like, how dare he have to put his laundry in a bag and put it in the laundry basket? That was beneath him. That's how legendary he was.
He had people doing things for his people.
Oh, no. And here's the thing. He was awesome. Okay, just so you know. Like you could take it the wrong way. You could be like, "Oh my goodness, this guy is full of himself." And when he played, I'm telling you, there's nobody fiercer on the field than Dan Marino. Like, he was uber competitive. And like, he was on guys, and he was like, he would get mad at you if you screwed up, if you dropped the he was on you, right?
The way that people always talked about Tom Brady flipping out at people, maybe with more composure.
I say Marino was worse.
Okay.
But the point is, like, he could come across as a jerk, but literally he had everybody's utmost respect. Everyone. Like every player, every coach, even players on the other teams, which was fascinating to watch when he'd have interactions. When I had interactions with him, like the quarterback club with the NFL, and this was after I left Miami. I was in Detroit. And to me, he was just my teammate. But to all the other quarterbacks, like the Favres and the Drew Bledsoes and the Steve Young, all these guys, like, they're like, this is freaking Marino. Like, he was legendary to all of the other quarterbacks. He really was. Like, you ask any of them, and they will all tell you nobody was better. Nobody was better than Dan Marino. Like, he was the king of the hill. So when you talk about legends, it is like, there's nothing better than Dan Marino. All right. So, but here's what happened with me. And this was a real thing. And so I start playing. And when you're the backup, people don't go, okay, he's replacing Marino. But they were. In fact, the funny thing is, so I play the first game, and we have a bye week the next week. So I fill in for Marino. He gets injured against the Cleveland Browns. And the next week we have a bye week. And I'm off having fun on my bye week. And my father-in-law has a Miami Dolphins hat on, and we're at breakfast. And the waiter goes, "Oh, man, your team's screwed now because you guys lost Marino." And I'm sitting right there, And my father-in-law goes, "Oh, no. My guy's in now. In fact, my guy's sitting right here." And
you got a hype man. Your father-in-law is your hype man.
No one
awesome.
more. Yeah, believe me. So there wasn't a lot of expectation at all, and in some regards, it was like you could do no wrong because they didn't expect anything to go right, and then all of a sudden, I come back in the first game that I play in after throwing an interception. My first play that was returned for a touchdown. We end up beating the Cleveland Browns in the game that I replaced Marino when he got injured. And I was named AFC Offensive Player of the Week in the first week that I played. And then the next game I start, we win. Then we play the Kansas City Chiefs, who had the number one defense in the NFL. They had Bruce Smith, Derek Thomas on defense. They were loaded. They had DeRon Cherry. They had just really good corners. Really good team, and Joe Montana was the quarterback for him then. So we beat Kansas City, and so we're I'm starting off, I'm like 4-0, and I was named AFC Offensive Player of the Month, and so all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this legendary guy who has 3 lockers, and they give him all his and it's like there was discussions at that time maybe we should consider trading Marino.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where it went, right?
After like 3-4
A month.
weeks. Yeah.
Well, I mean, James, like I'm just the biggest shock for me when I started playing in the NFL was like, this is like really easy.
Yeah.
Like it was like we had an amazing team. Like I mean, I had Irving Fryer and Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, the running back's dad.
Yeah.
Keith Jackson was our tight end. Keith Byers was one of our running backs. Terry Kirby was another one of our I mean, we had some really, really talented guys offensively. And then a great offense. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And then I got injured. And so and I didn't play for 5 games. And that was hard. And then I came back at the end of the year, and I just I shouldn't have probably come back, but I did. Played out the season. Then I was like, okay, well, calm down now. This is still Dan Marino, and off I went, which was fine because I wanted to be my own guy. Now, you look at other places, and Steve Young's a great example of this. Steve Young was harassed forever. Like, and he was a really good player. It's like the league MVP. They're winning 12-plus games a year, but he's not Joe Montana.
It took him a year, 2 or 3 to win that Super Bowl.
It took more than a couple of years.
Longer than that.
It was a lot longer because he took over for. He took over, I guess, in 92, 93, 92 somewhere. Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
But that probably felt like an eternity for Niners fans.
Well, I mean,
because they would
listen.
Won
Joe
almost
Montana
every year at the end of the 80s.
Joe Montana to me was the standard. I mean, people say like as a quarterback, Marino was the guy, but the standard of winning and a championship quarterback was Joe Montana. I mean, he was unbelievable, like so unbelievable. Just like. I'm not gonna lie. When I played against Joe Montana when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, like I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Because like, I'd stand on the sideline, I watch him, and I'm like, man, that dude can throw the ball. Like, it's so beautiful, him throwing the ball. But it was really cool to beat him too. So, so Steve Young, like it was okay. He did replace a legend, and he eventually won the Super Bowl. He goes into the Hall of Fame. Right?
Becomes his own legend.
But I still to this day believe that in most people's minds, Joe Montana is still the legend. In fact, I had Ronnie Lott on the Down and Dirty earlier this week, and Ronnie Lott has been on record saying, I'm going to take Joe.
Yeah.
Like, Joe's my guy. And it's
good. Played when both of them were starters, right?
Yes.
But yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear what Jerry Rice has to say, and I think Jerry Rice has said Joe Montana.
Yeah.
So if you were asking Steve Young, and again, I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he was an incredible quarterback. I think Steve Young, quite frankly, did more. I think he overcame with overcoming a legend, and not only that, but overcoming his propensity to be an athlete. Like so many quarterbacks today are these dual threat guys, and they run around, and they do all this stuff. But there comes a time when they have to sit in the pocket and throw. And Steve Young figured that out because he was as good an athlete at quarterback as there's ever been. And to kind of suppress that desire to go out and be that athlete and sit in the pocket and throw the football and become a master at what he did, that's a brutally hard thing to do. And not a lot of guys can do it. A lot of them have failed because they couldn't do it. And I have a tremendous respect for that he was able to really become a great quarterback.
Yeah, he doesn't
But still, I'm just telling you, people still think of Joe Montana.
Yeah.
They just do.
Steve Young doesn't get enough credit for how good of a scrambler and runner he was as a quarterback, does he, nowadays?
Who, Steve Young?
Steve Young, yeah. I mean,
among
guys from your generation who watched him probably, but among the people from my generation who didn't see much of him, we don't think of Steve Young that way.
Well, yeah, and you shouldn't, but I'm telling you, he could stack up against any of these guys. Like, he'd be phenomenal in today's world of sports. Like
where they're letting the quarterback run and more.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, But what it is, the guys who run, to me, don't know how to play quarterback. I'm just telling you, they don't understand how to read defenses, and they have a cheat. They have their little out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of outs, we're going to take a quicker break today because we have a great interview here with Gifford Nielsen, who was not a runner, by the way. He wouldn't scare anyone in a running race, but he was a longtime NFL quarterback. Of course, he's a consensus All-American quarterback at BYU, one of the first great ones that they had there. He's coming up next. Maybe we'll revisit this legend thing because I got a lot more to say about it. All right, this is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700-921 FM. There is nobody that I'm more excited to talk to than my first guest of the day, none other than Gifford Nielsen, the All-American quarterback at BYU, longtime NFL quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. Gifford Nielsen joins us on the program. Giff, how you doing this morning?
How is the big lefty? Oh, my goodness. You talk about talent, not only in radio, but you should have seen this guy play, and you should have seen Scott Mitchell throw the ball. That was down and dirty. It was amazing to watch him. And I'm doing great, Scott. So enjoyable to be back with you. Got such fond memories of our times in the past, and just think the world of you and your family.
See, this is why I love Gifford. He makes you feel good. Like I haven't even said anything yet, and I already feel good. It's really great to have you on the show, and you have no idea the impact that you have had on my life. Just some incredible things. Just for the viewers out there. So I'm this little snot-nosed 10-year-old kid, and I get invited to go to a professional football game where the Houston Oilers play the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1978. And Gifford was the one who invited me. I don't know how it all happened, but it did happen, and it was just a moment that really had a huge impact on me, even still today. And I got a game ball from the game, and that ball just was like everything. I never put it down, and so it was just fun to grow up, and really for me to kind of see a bigger vision, where I was able to dream big dreams and start to believe, I could go play in the NFL. How was it for you growing up? Who are your sports heroes? And did you ever, as you were growing up, think, okay, I can go play in the NFL and I can do these great things?
Scott, it's kind of interesting because we had kind of parallel careers, you growing up in Springville and me growing up in Provo, and just dreaming and wishing that maybe sometime, some way, somehow we could elevate our games to a point where we would have a chance to play at the highest level on planet Earth, and that was the NFL. And so, you go out in the backyard and you throw passes and you put yourself in situations like you got to make this throw to win the Super Bowl, or you got to shoot this basket to win the NBA championship, or whatever it is. And so you dream and you think, could this ever possibly happen? And in our cases, it did happen. And, when you talk about 1978 and you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and how dominating of a football team they were, and the Houston Oilers up and coming with the great Earl Campbell as our running back, that what you saw was the culmination of a lot of dreams and prayers and hard work and preparation and thought to get to a situation where you're actually playing in a game where the Houston Oilers are playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, I think it's you got to have luck along the way. You've got to have good people around you to help you. Got to have good parents. And Scott, you had great parents and you had a great family around you, and I had the same. And luckily, we were both able to go to our respective colleges, have wonderful careers there, and then actually get drafted in the NFL and found ourselves playing at that highest level of football on planet Earth. So I think it's the commitment, and I think it's the dream, the vision, and then just having good people around you to help you to get to that point, put you in a situation where you have, in our case, dreams come true.
Speaking of good people, when I was being recruited by BYU, and I spent a lot of time with Lavelle, and we had a lot of conversations over the time I was being recruited. And he said to me, he says, I don't say this often, but I know he meant it. And he said Gifford was my favorite player.
He had so many great players,
yeah.
And I am forever grateful that I had a mentor in my life like Lavelle. And you can't really talk about Lavelle unless you talk about Patty. And so Patty and Lavelle were the perfect examples of what we were supposed to be like, what we were supposed to act like. He always, in his own little way, Lavelle was not the most demonstrative person on the face of the earth, but in his own little way, he encouraged us to be better than we really thought we could ever become. and it happened. And I think that's the quality of Lavelle Edwards. He was always one that was taking us to levels that we never thought we could get by ourselves. And that's a very nice compliment, Scott. I know that he loved you. He wasn't happy with your decision, but everybody has to make decisions, and it worked out perfectly for you, and it worked out perfectly for me. But that's a very nice thing to say.
Yeah, he told me. In fact, it was about 2008, and we were at an event here in Utah, and he said, he said 2 years ago, I finally forgave you for not coming to BYU, which I really appreciated. So when you were at BYU,
right.
and you were right at the beginning of really one of the greatest innovations in college football, and that was throwing the football. How aware were you of it while it was happening?
Well, we really didn't understand what was going to happen. Everybody at that time, as you recall, most teams in the country were running the wishbone or the veer formations, and that's basically a running quarterback, and that's not the two of us. We were big, tall, strong guys who were going to stand back there and throw the ball. And so Lavelle wanted to throw the ball, and he didn't quite know how to do it. He did it a little bit with Dewey Warren as his offensive coordinator and Gary Scheide and Jay Miller. You remember that passing combination. But that wasn't really the offense that he really wanted. And so it's kind of interesting as the story goes. He called Bill Walsh, who was the head coach at Stanford, and said, I really want to commit to the passing game. And Bill Walsh told him, he said, if you can hire a guy that just got fired as the wide receiver coach for the San Francisco 49ers, his name is Doug Scoville. If you can hire Doug Scoville, he's got the offense that we all want to emulate. If you can hire him, then he's the guy that will help you with that passing game. And he said, but you know what? BYU doesn't pay anything, so you won't get him. And Lavelle, to his genius, found a way to get Doug Scoville to come to BYU. And as they say, everything changed. It's hard to believe that a quarterback coach can bring an offense into a university and in 1 year make a player an All-American quarterback. But that's what Doug Scoville did for me. And then he made Mark Wilson an All-American quarterback, and then he made Jim McMahon an All-American quarterback. He finally left and went to the NFL, and then Mike Holmgren came in and made Steve Young an All-American quarterback in the same offense. And then Norm Chow took over and had Robbie Bosco winning the national championship, and then Ty Detmer winning the Heisman Trophy. So it's kind of interesting what happens when you get with the right coach in the right offense doing the right thing, and that's what happened at BYU, and it's really unprecedented to see the success that took place with that offense that Doug Scoville brought in 1976.
It really is. And, it's talked about as one of the greatest innovations in college football and, kind of going against the grain. And it's, to me, all of it is fascinating, the impact that it has. I've heard of Mike Leach, where, he did the air raid and the spread offense, and a lot of what he implemented were a lot of the concepts and ideas that were happening at BYU. Here's great.
Can I just break in just for a second
please.
and tell you about this? Because the first day I met Mike Leach, he brought Texas Tech to Houston, and I was doing television at the time, and I went to interview him, and I walked in, and he just locked on me, and I'd never met him.
Right.
And he just looked at me, and my camera guy goes, "What's Mike Leach got against you?" And I said, "I don't know," because no matter where I'd go in the room, his eyes would follow me. And then I went up and I shook his hand, and he said, "The great Giff Nielsen." I went, "Yeah, hi, Coach, how are you?" And he goes, "Great." He said, "I've seen every one of your plays.
Wow.
I know exactly the offense." And he said, "I used to hide in the bushes." Mike Leach was a student at BYU.
Right. Yeah.
He used to hide in the bushes, and he said this to me, and watch every practice and watch everything that Doug Scoville did. So then I went to law school, and I didn't want to be a lawyer, and then I became a head coach, and I took the BYU offense, and I was playing against Texas A&M and Texas, so I couldn't run that exact offense. So I had to take one of the running backs and put him in the slot and spread the field a little bit more. But it's the BYU offense that I renamed the, what would you call it?
The air raid, the spread offense.
Air
Yeah.
Yeah, the air raid offense. And that's how I had to survive against Texas and Texas A&M, because they were bigger than we were.
Yeah. And
isn't that fascinating?
Oh no, it's totally fascinating. And he was actually on a recruiting trip, and I think he was at West Virginia, and they were recruiting a player in Florida, and he came by Orlando and watched this World League team playing with the similar type of offense. And he says that, because he talked about all of the different things that influenced his decision to go to this type of scheme. And I was actually playing for that World League team, and when he came by, so it's
Wow.
funny. And then for me, and I thought a lot about this. So again, to the listener out there, Gifford Nielsen took me to football camps. Like, I don't know how that happened, but we went to an offense-defense football camp at Utah State. I don't know, sometime after 1978, and I was your roommate. And here I am around all these NFL guys, and I was being exposed to these kinds of concepts, and it had an invaluable impact on me and my career was spending that time. And then of course you went and did these camps down in St. George for high school, and they were just the best times. Why did you do that? Did you just get paid to do that, or did you enjoy that? Because it was just some of the best times I had with football growing up.
Well, I think, Scott, and you know this, you invest in the future, and you were the future. You were one of the talented young players that had so much ability. I mean, the way Scott Mitchell could throw a football, everybody wanted to throw it like him. And he was big and he was strong. I mean, you were an amazing player, and there were other amazing players around you, but you invest in the future. You teach what you have been taught. And that's kind of how life goes. You go through your cycle, and then you try to look for younger people. I'm doing that with grandchildren right now, and all of their friends, just out throwing footballs with them and just trying to help them understand that they have tremendous ability if you work hard, and the message is, if you work hard and you work on your skills, you have a chance to continue to play. And that was your situation. And then to see how you took all of those experiences and magnified those experiences to a point where you had an unbelievable high school career, college career, and then really an unbelievable pro career, it just kind of brings warmth to your heart that, you're helping others have the same goals and dreams that you had. And you're just a perfect example of that. In fact, I don't think you've ever thrown an incompleted pass, and you've never thrown an interception. But the older we get, I tell my kids and my grandkids, I never threw an incompletion. I was like 100%, and I never threw an interception. So,
well, the sad thing for me is as I recall some of these moments, I think I'm telling the truth. And I go back and I'm like, wow, you remember that completely different. Like I have scores of games, and in 1995 when I was playing for the Detroit Lions, we went back to the Astrodome, and it was such a moment for me, because as this little 10-year-old kid, I was at a game and I just dreamed of one day playing on that field, and the Astrodome one, in its glory, and the Oilers with the "Love You Blue" and all that. It was it was so exciting, and for me, being from Utah and going and seeing the Astrodome was just an incredible thing. What was it like for you? Like, what was your first impression? Like, you get drafted by the Houston Oilers. What was your first impression when you got there on day one?
How fast and intense everything was. you're talking about some of the greatest athletes on planet Earth, and they really could play, and how tough and intense it was. But I found out that all my teammates were just really good people, good guys, and we came from different environments and looked at things differently in a lot of ways, but still they were teammates, and we joined together. But that was Bum Phillips. I had Lavelle in college, and then I had Bum Phillips as my head coach in pro football. And as a young player, you couldn't have had two greater mentors.
Really?
Because Bum was very unique. He was a Texas legend. He looked like a cowboy. He dressed like a cowboy. He was just really amazing with the way he handled everything, and just put a lot of confidence in me as a young player, and I just felt like I wanted to run through the wall for him. So I developed a very close relationship with my head coach in a very short period of time, and I knew that he could count on me. He honestly believed that he could count on me. So Dan Pastorini was our starting quarterback. Earl Campbell, the great Earl Campbell, we were drafted the same year. So we had a tremendous team, but I just felt like Bum could count on me. So when I first went into the NFL, it was like learning, understanding relationships, and then the trust factor was really important to me, because I felt like that they could trust me and I could trust them, and that's not an easy thing to get to very quickly in the NFL, as you well know.
Yeah, it's a funny dynamic between the players and the coaches, and because everyone's job's on the line, and so a lot of coaches have a hard time with that trust, and they're quick to yank you out of a game or to go a different direction if they things aren't going well, and to have a coach that believes in you and trusts you. For me, I sat next to Don Shula and Dan Marino for 4 years, like every meeting of every day. And someone told me, and I didn't know why, but they said, Coach Shula just really likes you. And it meant so much to me, because like you said, man, I would run through the wall for that guy. I loved, and Coach Shula was hard, but I loved playing for Coach Shula. I'm trying to envision in my head here, when you mentioned Lavelle and Bum Phillips, I for some reason, it would be fun to superimpose them over each other and have Lavelle in a cowboy hat and cowboy boots on the side. I don't know. It's just, I think that would be a funny image.
Well, when you look at those two, I mean, just think about how similar they were. They put the responsibility on the players. They were very low key. They were not rah-rah type guys. They were just teachers, and they were so down to earth. And so to have those two coaches, one in college ball and then one in pro ball, that really, really cared about us, is very unique, because you've had coaches and I've had coaches that you just didn't want to play for. You knew that they were in it for a different reason. Yeah. These two were not. They were in it for you first, and then if you performed the way you were supposed to perform, then the team was going to be successful. So they weren't in it for just the team being successful. They wanted to build men, giants of men, and both of them did that. It was pretty remarkable when I really think about it. And then to play with Earl Campbell, oh my goodness, Scott! If you would have played with Earl Campbell, you would have played for 25 years, because all you have to do is just turn around and hand it to him, and then just watch what happened. It's the most intense, remarkable thing I've ever seen. Did you play with Barry Sanders?
As you're talking about Earl Campbell, I'm thinking about Barry Sanders, and they're just polar opposites in their style. I mean, Earl was the guy that was looking to run you over, and Barry was the guy that was looking to never get touched, and please don't hit me. And I have to tell you, I think I would rather have I'd rather give, a consistent, hey, I'm going to get you at least 4 yards, 3-4 yards on every play, because Barry was tough at times, that you couldn't get a consistent flow with your offense. You get some spectacular plays, I mean, unbelievable plays, but that tough yards that you need a lot of, especially at the NFL at that time, Barry wasn't that guy.
It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. To hand off. We were supposed to carry out our fakes, but with Earl, you didn't have to carry out any fakes. All you have to do is just hand off and then just watch what happened. And I've never seen, you start talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and you talk about Joe Green and you talk about Jack Lambert and Jack Ham and L.C. Greenwood and Mel Blount. And all those guys are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And to go up against them and for you to be able to see them in the Astrodome was a treat, because when you played the Steelers, when the Oilers and the Steelers played together, it was an absolute war. And then after it was over with, it was just, we're all friends. But it was a war during the game. And to see how intense that was, especially with Earl carrying the ball, was just remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. People ask me all the time, who's the greatest running back ever to play? And I go, well, if you're talking about running back, power, agility, intensity, I think Earl's in a class by himself. And that's crazy to say when you start thinking about Bo Jackson and Emmitt Smith. Just start naming
Jim Brown, Walter Payton.
But this guy was unbelievable, and how powerful he was and how big his thighs were and how much punishment he dished out was just something to behold. In fact, you had to really concentrate when you handed the ball to Earl, because you didn't know how fast he was coming. You certainly did not want to get your steps out of place, because if he ever hit you, your career was over.
You're on IR.
Yeah, you're gone. But it was just enjoyable to play with him, and we just had it rolling. Everybody was wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and then Houston, Texas was, with the Love You Blue years, was a place that was hard to describe.
I remember actually going to the walkthrough practice on Saturday before the game against the Steelers when we went to the game, and there's just some impressions that never leave you. And one of them was watching Earl Campbell walk out of the locker room and he was by himself, and there was a presence. Like, even as a young kid, I was like, wow. You just felt the greatness in him as a player, and it was I'll never forget that. Like, that image is stuck in my head all these years.
Scott, you got the full experience. I took you to the Saturday walkthrough that day when you were down there.
Oh yeah, I went in the locker room. In fact, Dan Pastorini.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Dan Pastorini. Right. You have no idea what this. I remember going in the locker room Saturday walkthrough practice before an NFL game, and meeting a lot of the players, and I you introduced me to Dan Pastorini, and he was talking to some other players, and he said, man, last night I was driving down the street in my Cadillac, and I don't know what happened, but the median just jumped out and hit me. I was just minding my own business. And what I realize now is that he was probably a little bit inebriated, and because I know what happens on Friday night with a lot of NFL players. But yeah, those are some fun, like, incredible moments for me. It really was.
Yeah. You had the full experience. I'm so happy about hearing this.
Oh no, it was incredible. Speaking of, like, so you talked about after your career, you're the sports director at the CBS affiliate in Houston. And how much time did you spend during your career preparing for when you were done? And how hard was that actually to make that transition?
So it was interesting you would ask that question, because the first day that I walked on the practice field, or the first day I went to Houston, I was met by a guy by the name of Willie Alexander. I don't know if that name rings a bell,
Yep.
but he was one of our defensive backs, and he said, hey, rookie, I'm here to prepare you for the day you step out of pro football. Very first day.
Wow.
And I said, Willie, who are you? And what did you just say? And he said, I'm here to help you prepare for the first day you step out of professional football. And I thought, okay, I didn't understand what he was talking about. But as I got into it and became very close friends with Willie Alexander, I knew exactly what he was talking about, because the NFL, you're only as good as your last game, your last play, your last throw. It wasn't quite like that with Bum, like I said, because he really cared about you, and he got his players, and then he wanted to go do his thing. So Willie Alexander kind of prepared me for that when I very first started my career. What was interesting is I wasn't thinking that my career was over after 6 years.
Right.
In fact, the three quarterbacks that were
the quarterbacks for the Houston Oilers my last year in the NFL, Archie Manning, Oliver Luck, and me. And so, Peyton was a little kid running around in the Gatorade. Now I think he owns Gatorade. I'm not sure he owns everything else. And Cooper, the older son, was always around. Eli was not born yet. Andrew Luck, the great quarterback, was not born yet. But the three of us were the quarterbacks, and we had we were a bad team, and eventually Warren Moon was signed along with his head coach to come in and resurrect the Houston Oilers. And so at that time, the TV station said, "Hey, listen, do you want to do TV?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, will you listen to an offer?" And I said, "Yes." And so they offered me a 3-year contract to do TV. I'd never done TV before, but they offered me a 3-year contract to come and be the sports guy on the CBS affiliate in Houston. So prayed about it, thought about it, pondered about it. Could have been Warren Moon's backup quarterback for probably 5 or 6 more years, because Archie was traded to Minnesota and Oliver was in law school at UT. And so I decided to jump. And so it's kind of interesting. Not too many people tell the NFL they're through. Usually the team tells you you're through when you can't play or you can't walk.
Yeah.
But I told the NFL I was done, and I started in television, and I was the sports guy on the CBS affiliate in Houston for 25 years, starting there not knowing anything about it.
Oh, that's
really
crazy.
But it just shows you if you learn how to learn, you go to school and you learn things and do things, that you can make adjustments if you need to make adjustments no matter what happens. And I think that's one of the things that sports has taught me, that you have to make adjustments along the way. And that was certainly a time to make adjustments in my career.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating because it's such a special experience to go play professional football, and it's hard to let it go. And I'm fascinated with how guys do it and how guys don't. And I had my own journey with it that was pretty powerful. But
Andrew Luck just did that. I mean, he steps away, and now he's the new. It's a new position in athletics. I think he's the new. What is it at Stanford?
So the general manager. They're running college football like the NFL.
So he's the new general manager at Stanford. First order of business: fire the football coach.
You got to make those tough decisions.
Yeah,
so I got one more question before I let you go, as I have to go, and I don't want to. I just so enjoyed this. It's been wonderful. What's harder, or what's more nerve-wracking to you, speaking in general conference, or playing in an NFL game?
It's interesting, the journey of speaking in general conference, because you get this little note that says, "Will you speak in general conference?" Well, you can't say no. And for a time period, and they ask you to be really respectful of that time. And so you put a lot of thought and prayer and emphasis into that talk, and then you go stand in front of 21,000 people and give your talk. And it's really the talk that the Lord gives you. You're inspired on that talk. You put a lot of thought and prayer into it, and then you put it together, and then you refine it, and you refine it, and you refine it to a point where you get to, is this what you want me to deliver? So when you say what's harder, that's a pretty interesting experience, to walk up there to that podium with the apostles and prophets sitting right behind you and looking at a worldwide audience and giving that talk. Different intensity, no question, but all of those experiences define us, right?
Yep.
And take us to where we need to go to do one thing, and that is to lift and build people everywhere you go. And that's one of the things that Scott Mitchell has always done. Lift and strengthen people everywhere you go, Scott. So congratulations on your wonderful career and everything that you stand for.
Well, I really appreciate that, and you've lifted me in my life, and I really appreciate it. You have no idea the influence, and it's there to this day. You've been a great example, and very kind with your time and your words through the years. All right, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
Okay, Scott, best to you and your family. Talk to you later.
All righty, folks. There you have it, Gifford Nielsen there. Fun conversation. Really like that. Listen, our show today and every day is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Les Schwab has the tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever you drive. Stop by your local Les Schwab today, and their professionals will get the job done right the first time. Hey, check out your bracket in our $1 million bracket challenge. A perfect bracket wins you $1 million. Go to ESPN700sports.com and click on the $1 million bracket challenge post at the top of the homepage to keep track of your picks. ESPN 792.1 FM's $1 million bracket challenge is brought to you by Motorsportsland, Jersey Mike's, the Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Intermountain Bobcat, and Ken Garff Nissan of Salt Lake City. Around the corner, we got a PGA Tour leaderboard update, along with some sounds from spring football up on the hill. This is the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. All righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. It's Friday. It's Fun Friday. It's Football Friday. But right now, it's PGA Tour Leaderboard Update Friday. The Valero Texas Open. Of course, the leaderboard update is brought to you by UNA Golf. The new Ping G440, that's 440. The driver delivers faster ball speed along with Ping's game-changing forgiveness. The G440 irons are designed for more distance and control. Available now at UNA Golf. What's the update, James?
Yeah, they're at the Valero Texas Open, as you mentioned, Scott. Keith Mitchell, who at the time we did the update yesterday was your leader. He is still in the lead. At 8 under. He's not begun his second round yet. So he's at 8 under. A few other guys are just ending their rounds, including Sam Ryder, who I believe ended up as the leader in the clubhouse at the end of round 1 because he is 2 over for the day, but he's still just a shot behind Keith Mitchell at 7 under. So he started the day at 9 under, still right there, though, at 7 under in second place. A host of guys tied for third, including Daniel Berger and Brian Harmon at 6 under, just 2 shots off the lead. And right behind them, tied for ninth, Jordan Spieth is one of a handful.
Spiether.
at 5 under, just 3 shots off the lead. Where's Tony Finau? He has not begun his second round. He finished round 1 at a really good 3 under for the day, just 6 shots off the lead. So he's not begun his round as of yet, but really good. He'll be starting in a really good position at 3 under, tied for 21st. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update from the Valero Texas Open, brought to you by You Went to Golf.
Thank you, James. All right, maybe real quick before we go to let's get a little spring sound, right? Because it's Football Friday. It's Fun Friday. We need to hear some sound from practice. We got safety Rabbit Evans on his thoughts about spring practice.
Rabbit, how's spring ball going?
It's been great, just coming out here with the team, being with the guys, it's been fun. I've been missing it, so just being out here with everybody, just learning, keep growing. It's fun. I'm excited.
As far as last season, when it seemed like you kind of came into your own over the final 3 games and really became an impactful player, what's your goal this offseason in terms of taking that next step and building on that?
Just continue to learn the defense, continue to build in my relationship with the rest of the defense. That's really it. I'm just trying to build on last year, just kind of keep stacking with the team, just keep getting better every day.
How did last season help you just kind of with your confidence and everything?
Just getting those reps and stuff like that just helped build my confidence. I kind of already got it, but just kind of keep building those reps, you feel me, with the team and stuff like that. That really helps a lot. That really helps.
What's Morgan Scalley's message been to you guys this offseason in terms of, improving on 2024?
Just consistency, running to the ball, finishing, tackling how we're supposed to, because that was a little problem we had last year, missing tackles and stuff like that. So just the little things, just continue to grow, and, that's it for real.
What's your relationship like with Teo? You two play a lot together.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with him?
That's my brother. It's been good. Just been growing with him these past 10 months. It's just been it's been good to learn who he is as a player, as a friend too. So yeah, that's my dog. That's my friend. Yeah, for sure.
What do you make of the rest of the safety room, the young guys behind you and all that, just the competition in the room?
Oh yeah, those guys are good, man. It's great coming out here every day to learn with each other, compete with each other, and just try to just get each other better every day. That's kind of what I come into the every day with, just getting each other better, stuff like that.
What's it been like going up against this new offense that you're trying to install?
It's been fun. It's been fun, tricky. It's different from last year's offense. So it's just been fun. It kind of took a couple weeks to kind of really get to know the offense a little bit, but it's been fun, man. That offense electric for sure.
I'm curious about what your thoughts on Nate Tillman are so far.
Oh yeah, man. He's young, but he's already starting to really come along, learn the defense and stuff like that. He's big, got the size, so he gonna make plays for sure when his time comes.
2 more if they're up there.
How would you describe your comfort level with your responsibilities in the defense?
I'm comfortable. I could say, a little bit last year I wasn't really that comfortable. It was just my first year in the system and stuff like that. But now, having this spring to kind of work on everything, I'm starting to really get comfortable for sure.
What's the motivation for you in 2025?
I want to win. So, that's kind of the motivation, just being here with my teammates every day, showing up, seeing them. That's kind of my motivation, my teammates, for sure.
There you have it, folks. Rabbit Evans on his thoughts. I tell you, he's a player that's going to be really important to this team and to this defense. He's a guy that showed that he can do something, and he talks about getting those reps last year. It's so invaluable because you come into spring practice with so much more confidence, and you just take your game to a much higher level than if you're just starting out this year. So even though it was a tough year for this team, there were a lot of players like Rabbit who got some invaluable game experience that will just lead to comfort and confidence as they move forward. And his position is such an integral part of this defense and how it works. And between he and Teo Johnson and, of course, Smith Snowden's, that's a trifecta there kind of in the middle of the field in that secondary. That's a huge part of how well this defense goes. So watching him this year and his development, and he makes plays. This defense is gonna have a good year.
Yeah, real quick, Scott, because off air we were talking about how you've got some fairly high expectations for Nate Ritchie in that safety room too.
Yeah, Nate's a guy who he was starting before he left and went on an LDS mission, and then he's really had a tough time getting back into the swing of things. The first year, he had missionary legs, and last year you started to see a little bit more from him, and it looks like he's making even strides further because he's one of those guys. Just he's got a gamer mindset. He's a playmaker type of player, and he's a great leader. And you need those guys on this team to be those leaders. So he's another one. This secondary, I think, is going to be really strong for Utah, though. There's going to be a provided that everyone stays healthy, it's going to be a significant part of the success of this.
There's more sound, too. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to it here, maybe later in the show. But if we don't, ESPN700sports.com and the ESPN 700 app is where you go. The spring football page, you see at the top of the home page there. And our spring football coverage brought to you by Jersey Mike's.
All right, go check it out. Yeah, you want to hear all this stuff. It's good stuff. Spring football is a lot of fun. All right, this is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Around the corner, Andy Larson, Jazz beat writer with the Salt Lake Tribune. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean here today. I'll be back a couple of days next week and I think the week after that. Anyways, always fun to fill in for Sean. He does a great job, and so happy to help him out when he's gone. It's Friday. It's Fun Friday. It's Fantastic Friday. It's also Football Friday. Speaking of football, the old Colorado Buffaloes are having their pro day. I love to watch pro days, quite frankly. It tells me a lot, especially quarterbacks, because they have everything in their favor. It's a very controlled environment, so if they better do well in that environment. And if you see little chinks in the armor, then it's a telltale sign. So if they do really well, then you go, okay, this guy's pretty good. It'll, of course, be fun to watch Travis Hunter, who's projected to be 3 or 4. Where's Shedeur going to go? That's always a fun thing. Really quick, if you want to listen to us, you just go check us out live. So you hit the live tab on ESPN700sports.com or go to the ESPN 700 app. It's free. And you can also talk to your smart speaker and just tell it to play ESPN 700. We're also at ESPN 700 Sports Utah on YouTube, and, of course, the podcast version on ESPN700sports.com or on demand with the ESPN 700 app. All right, joining us right now, even though it is a Football Friday, we have Andy Larson, who is the Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. We're going to talk a little Jazz right now. Andy, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am so happy. It's Friday. It's Fun Friday. It's Fantastic Friday. The Jazz play tonight. They play the Pacers. What should we expect from tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean, the Jazz aren't going to win.
That's good, right? Yay, everybody. Woohoo.
Yeah, I mean, the good news from a Jazz point of view is that there are 5 games left, and they are currently in the number 1 spot with the tanking seeds, right? So you have the best odds at getting Cooper Flag. You guarantee yourself a top 5 pick if you're the number 1 worst team in the league, and that's where the Jazz are. So, you look at the injury report, they continue to hold most of their good players out, and the Pacers are a relatively reasonable team in the Eastern Conference that, will probably beat the Jazz by a lot if recent games are anything to go by. So, frankly, as you point out, this is a Friday, and you probably have better things to do with your day than watch the Jazz, lose another game that they're trying to lose.
Oh, no. I want to watch every last miserable minute of it. I don't want to miss an ounce of this. Actually, I am curious, though, because we're kind of having a little tongue-in-cheek about the tanking thing. I mean, we have a tanking tracker going on here at ESPN 700. How does the team react to all of this? Do they hold a professional face on this, or is there a little tongue in cheek with them? It's kind of like, all right, we know what we're doing here, really. What is your vibe about their feeling about tanking?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like I think many of the players, so like Larry Markkinen, for example, has a long-term contract, and is in general actually supportive of the tank, or at least supportive of the Jazz kind of building up. And so while I've talked to him about this, he wishes that the NBA were set up differently so tanking weren't beneficial to teams. He understands it and, kind of sees himself being part of the Jazz in the future probably. And then as a result, will benefit from getting a Cooper Flag or whatever happens in this year's draft. For other players like Colin Sexton or John Collins, it's a little bit harder because they're in the prime of their career, but aren't able to play because the team's holding them out, even though they're healthy, right? So that's tough. And clearly they're playing with teammates who aren't as good as they are, and having to carry some load, which can be fun, but also is probably doesn't make their games look as good as they could. And, as a result, maybe affects their future contract earnings, and that's not great. And then for the young players, I think it really depends. I think some of them have taken this well and, are kind of focused on their own development and making sure that they're the best player they can be for the time when the Jazz are good down the road. And then some of them are, a little bit goofing off, and a little bit, it is just hard, are being human about it, right? Like, it is hard to maintain focus given that. So, yeah, look, it kind of depends where you are on this Jazz roster, but it is just such a weird situation that I think it totally is very different than, how you'd expect. You don't learn a lot about these players necessarily in this environment because it is so backwards.
Can you get a sense for the mood of the team to finish out the season? I know we're kind of talking about the tanking side of this, and there's a lot of different, I guess, mood motivations for players like these veteran guys. But what's the general mood of the team? Are they just like trying to, just get this over with, or is there a sense of, all right, who's ever out there, we're going to compete, and we're going to try the best that we can?
Yeah, I mean, Will Hardy's trying his best to get them to compete and try as hard as they can, and to mostly successful ends. So like I think you mostly watch the Jazz play hard, but with some pretty significant exceptions. They lost a half by 38 points last week. They did not play any defense against Houston the other night. I think that being said, I would say the mood is probably generally better than you would expect on a 16-win team. I don't think there's like a lot of depression going on in the locker room. I think there's a lot of like, it's kind of playing out the string, having some fun with it, enjoying the fact that they're in the NBA, and yeah, no one's getting at each other's throats or anything like that.
So, of the veteran players that are around, you mentioned a couple of them. How realistic? I mean, how many of them realistically are a part of the Jazz future?
Yeah, I mean, one probably, and then that's
Wow.
Lauri Markkanen,
Yeah.
and even him maybe traded. This team is extremely far away from contending, and let's be pretty honest about that. And so, I think the Jazz have tried at the trade deadline and in summers past, and even the trade deadline before that, to move on from John Collins and Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. And I think it's smart to expect those conversations to continue this summer. To this point, the market for those players hasn't been what the Jazz wanted, and I expect that largely to continue this summer. But that being said, because the CBA opens up in the offseason, maybe you can find homes for a Colin Sexton and a John Collins, especially, who have actually had pretty good seasons kind of individually. Lauri Markkanen's an interesting one where I think there's kind of a 50-50 shot, whether he's on the team moving, in the long term on the next good Jazz team, right? Like, I think there's a world in which he is your second or third banana on a great team. But I also think there's a world where the Jazz just kind of go all in on tanking again next year and try to get an AJ Debonsa, a Darren Peterson, a Cameron Boozer, and try to get two stars to pair with whoever they draft in this year's draft. I think it kind of depends on what that trade market looks like. Last year there were kind of these offers like from Golden State with kind of these role players plus about 2 to 3 picks. If the Jazz get those kind of offers again this year, maybe they're more tempted by them. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it is again, I can't emphasize enough. They're just really far away, and so it's going to be kind of a long rebuild where you have to build these young guys that they haven't even drafted yet up to be stars.
Yeah, so that was a question I was going to ask you about. Does this do we go and redo this again next year? Is this 2.0 tanking again next year? And would that be the strategy then? You say, look, we're going to unload these veteran players, Collins and Sexton and Clarkson, and that will ensure that we're really in the deep rebuild still, even regardless of wherever we end up in the lottery pick. Would that signify, okay, this is a rebuild, or do you still keep those players and still go through the same process? I mean, to me, Andy, it just makes sense. Like, look, if you're not going to make the playoffs, then you might as well be way out of the playoffs and get a much better pick. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're probably right that, and that is the way the Jazz front office is largely thinking is this is not a short-term thing. This is a long-term thing. You're right that I think trading those guys is the logical move. I think for example, Jordan Clarkson, frankly, right now is a negative trade value in the NBA, where his contract is larger than his value on the court. And so as a result, he may just stay on the roster because the Jazz don't want to give up assets to dump him, right? Like, you might as well just pay out his salary until his contract ends at the end of next season. So, John Collins, like I said, John Collins and Colin Sexton probably do have positive value, and so maybe you can get something out of them, and you're absolutely right. It makes sense to trade those guys and see what you can get. But yeah, and if you get Cooper Flagg, then maybe you can talk yourself into like a Cooper Flagg, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler front court, trying to trade for or acquire a really good guard and make a run for, the play-in tournament next year and try to build your way up that way. I mean, I think that's plausible. But if you don't get Cooper Flagg, if you get, the third, fourth, or fifth pick, then you are probably talking about next year just definitely being another year in the rebuild.
Speaking of that front court, is that too big? I mean, does it? Are there too many? I guess cooks in the kitchen. Too many big guys there. Yeah,
it's a fair question. I think Cooper Flagg can play as a 3, and you're good. Because he does move so well, because he is smart, because he can score from all 3 levels, because he can be a really positive weak side help defender. I think in the NBA, like, whether he plays the 3 or the 4, is probably mostly determined by his team around him, the team context. But yeah, I don't hate the idea of a Cooper Flag, Larry Markin, and Walker Kessler front court. I think that basically works.
So of all the potential lottery picks, I know everything you hear is Cooper Flag, but I have heard other names being thrown out there that could potentially be a fit for the Jazz. Who is the absolute best fit of all the lottery picks for the Jazz?
I mean, you take Cooper Flag, no question. Like, he's the best player, and even if, yes, you have a little bit of a fit question, like you would probably rather get a great guard out of this draft. Like, it doesn't matter because Cooper Flag is that much better than the other prospects.
Sure.
But clearly number 2 is Dylan Harper, and actually would be a really tremendous fit with the Jazz because they do need better guard play. I mean, I get that Isaiah Collier has been able to pass the ball recently and is a good player. Dylan Harper is at a completely different level where he is a playmaker to the degree and can create his own shot to a degree that he looks like a future all-star in a way that Isaiah Collier, Keontae George just don't. So, as a fit to set up the likes of Lowry, to set up the likes of Walker Kessler, Dylan Harper is a really kind of natural fit for what the Jazz need, and I think is clearly the second best prospect in this draft. You go lower than that, yeah, you're talking Ace Bailey, you're talking VJ Edgecombe, maybe a Trey Johnson at number 5, maybe Maluak. The fits start to get a little bit weirder, but again, based on where this roster is, this 2025 draft pick is the one you want to build around rather than the other way around. Just take best player available and then see what you can do in the years to come to build around that player rather than trying to get cute and make that player's game work with Colin Sexton or whatever.
Okay, one thing I learned, or I decided, it was just a hard line for me as a professional athlete. I was like, I will never be fined. I am never going to give them my money. John Morant just didn't seem to care, kind of a little bit flippant about it. He was just fined by the NBA $75,000 for his gesture. Now, to me, the gesture really, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. Like I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing the gun thing, but I guess if it's a rifle, maybe, but who knows? Art is subjective, right? What's going on with John Morant?
Yeah, look, he's poking the bear. I mean, he was suspended last year twice for these kind of gun-related incidents where he had a gun in a car,
right?
And so now, is also doing those celebrations on the court, and it makes Adam Silver a little antsy. So he warned him again, I believe it was, 4 days ago. And then in the Grizzlies' most recent game, he just went ahead and did kind of that shotgun celebration again. And I'm with you. Like, I don't have an actual problem with him doing the gun celebration thing on the court, right? Like, whatever. But it is kind of interesting and kind of flagrant from like a, hey, you have been warned specifically not to do this, and you did it again in the very next game thing. And so, like, it becomes a little bit of a power struggle between John Morant and, if we're honest, the NBA player union and the league and Adam Silver. And so I think that's what you're seeing with these fines, and it's going to be interesting to see, Ja's, ability or want to continue to eat those fines, right? Like, I think that's, we know, like, Michael Jordan back in the day, and this is a very different example, but paid the fine so he could wear the Jordans on the court that were banned, right? Because it was worth it, right? To his image, to his brand. I don't know that this is the same thing, right? Where I don't know how much money he's making from the gun celebrations. He's not sponsored by Smith & Wesson or whatever, but, he does clearly want to poke the bear here, and so we'll see how long he does it for.
That was a good move by Michael Jordan. That was a small price to pay for an empire that still it just keeps on giving and giving and giving, which is amazing to me. So, Luka, like this whole Luka trade, is everyone overreacting to it? Because I know LeBron always moves the needle, and he's always the top of discussion, and the Lakers. Is there too much overreaction with Luka? You know, where are you on that whole trade, and where the Lakers are as they go into the postseason?
So I think that the Lakers are probably overrated. That basically I think Luka and LeBron are extremely good, and even Austin Reeves is a good third banana, and I think they are an interesting team that is one of the Western Conference best teams, and even may make it to the Western Conference Finals, where I think they're just not as good as the Thunder, and probably not as good as the Nuggets. But that being said, they obviously got a lot better as part of this trade, and have set themselves up for years to come as well, which is awesome. Which is from their point of view. I'm, as a Laker hater, it's terrible from my point of view. But from a Mavericks point of view, it is it's a catastrophe. I mean, you not only have you lost your franchise player, the player that was going to take you moving forward. Anthony Davis, turns out, yes, he's injury prone, as we've known, and he's over 30, and so it doesn't get better from here, injury proneness. They have their role players are old. Spencer Dinwiddie and Klay Thompson aren't the players they once were. And they have no real draft capital moving forward to improve the team. And it appears that ownership and management, frankly, are among the worst in the NBA. And so, that went from a very good and interesting situation where they were in the NBA Finals 10 months ago to as bleak as the situation gets in the league. And so you understand why, Alex Jensen, for example, wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible and take the Utah Utes job. So, look, I think they deserve every bit of criticism that they've gotten, and maybe even more from their fans. It's just not right what the Dumont family and Nico Harrison did to that team, that city, that franchise, those fans. It's something that will be remembered for decades and decades to come.
Is May 12th the most important day in Jazz history?
Ooh, good question. It's certainly the most important day of the Jazz's last 3 years. Maybe you put Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals up there, right?
Right.
And maybe some other playoff battles, but it's really important. And it's funny because even if the Jazz do finish with the worst odds, and it looks like they will, they still have about a 50% chance of just not winning the lottery and getting the number 5 pick. And,
Right.
Flip a coin between that's the most devastating outcome. That's a waste of a year, right? And look, that number 5 pick could still be good, so could be a good player, but he's, not likely to be an all-star. And so, yeah, the difference between not an all-star and Cooper Flagg, who I think is, one of the best number 1 picks we've seen in recent years, maybe not at the level of Victor Wembanyama, but, third or fourth of the number 1 picks we've had recently, is just huge. It's just a huge gap. And so, yes, Jazz fans will either be elated or hugely disappointed on that day, and the front office will be too.
It's going to be fun to watch, and I hope for everyone's sanity, every Jazz fan sanity, that they get the top pick. I really do, and it would be fun. Wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be fun to have a Cooper Flagg here? Wouldn't it be fun to just have that franchise play? I don't know. I just think that'd be really fun.
I'm totally with you. And then the only other good thing is, kind of regardless next year, you do have the number 1 high school recruit in the state of Utah.
Right.
And yes, down south, but that at least will mean probably some interesting and fun star-driven basketball next year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Boy, that would be exciting. Yeah. I'm all for tanking twice. I really am. I'm on it, because if they're not going to make the playoffs, so fine, just lose.
You and the Jazz's front office, or most of the Jazz's front office, are of one mind there.
So, you a fan of the NCAA March Madness men's finals?
Yeah, of course.
Do you like do you like that the four top? There's some people like, nah, we like the kind of the mid majors. We like some of these Cinderellas. It's boring if all the number one seeds make it through. Where do you fall on that? Do you like this Final Four matchup?
No, I do. I admit I like it when you get the mid majors in there. I like it when you get some number 7 seeds in there. I love the chaos of it more than I like the scratch here that we've seen. Right, like what I think is interesting is that this is actually the first year I predicted that there would be 4 number 1 seeds, and that my bracket was just that. And because if you just looked at how you looked at the advanced stats of the college basketball teams this year, I think there were just clearly 4 better teams than everyone else in the country. And I think Florida was a little bit lucky to win their Elite Eight game. But other than that, I think the teams that made it to the Final Four showed why they were the best teams in the country pretty consistently throughout the tournament, right? I would love there to be a Coastal Carolina or something, I don't know, in the Final Four, but or St. Mary's or whatever. But I understand how we got here, and I think that does make the Final Four games themselves it's going to be some really high level basketball. Makes it probably less likely we see blowouts tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, great stuff, Andy. Really appreciate your time today, and enjoy the rest of your day. And go Jazz in losing.
Sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
All right. There you have it, folks. Andy Larson. He's the Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. We're going to take a break here. Around the corner, we have none other than Isaac Shade, host of Locked On College Basketball. We're going to talk a lot about the Final Four here and other things. This is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. We are proud to be a part of Utah's ESPN radio network, and we are Utah's #1 sports talk. I am so glad there are Laker haters out there. I'm a Laker hater. I don't like them. Sorry. And no one in the state of Utah should. That's a rule. In fact, I think they should pass legislation. We're going to tariff any Laker fan. How about that? To get anything Laker related, we're going to tariff it in the state of Utah. Well, speaking of basketball, we're going to go out to Isaac Shade, who's the host of Locked On College Basketball podcast. He's joining us right now. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm great, Scott. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm living the dream, and it's not a nightmare, so it's good.
We'll
right?
take that. Look, here's my nightmare right now. I'm a Braves fan, and we're 0-7.
Oh, you are? Yes. You know, I'm a Braves fan, too. Long time. Yeah. So I grew up in Utah, right? And every Utahn has to be a Braves fan. It was cable television. It was WTBS, right? And so my hero was Dale Murphy. Loved him. And then Glenn Hubbard.
Yeah.
Right? You remember him? Second baseman.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Utah, so we have to cheer for him. So
okay.
Like our Braves. Where are you? You're in North Carolina, right?
Funny enough, I actually live in Southwest Missouri.
Oh, no way.
Just random, yeah.
Okay. How did I hear you're in North Carolina? Anyways.
Well, I also cover. So, in addition to hosting Locked On College Basketball, I also host Locked On Tar Heels, and so it's. I think most people assume that I do live in North Carolina.
I see. So two of my kids live in North Carolina. I want to talk to you about pimento cheese sandwiches because I think they're disgusting. And
I'm with you. I'm out on anything olive related is bad news.
They're so bad, and they love them. They love them on white bread. It's just the funniest thing in the world.
It's beyond me, Scott. It's beyond me. Well, what's gang up in arms against your kids? It's their thing.
Yeah. What is the thing in Southwest Missouri?
If it doesn't matter what it is as long as it's fried. I think that's the thing.
Okay.
Here.
Fried.
I'm 2 hours due south of Kansas City, so it's a lot of barbecue.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not bad. I mean, I will never turn down barbecue.
Absolutely. Give me all the finest meats in the land,
I'm right there with you. All right, so this is only the second time in the men's finals that the #1 seeds have made it all the way through. What's your take on that?
It's great. Look, the phrase I always use: upsets early, chalk late. That's what we want to see in our brackets. That's what we want to see in the game. To be frank, that's what the TV execs want too. Here's why: in the first round, maybe the second round, the upsets are fun. They're engaging. Oh, that team we all expected to win lost, and they're going home. Oh, take that, Virginia in 2018. Oh, take that, Purdue a couple years ago. But then when we get to the Sweet 16 and beyond, it's like, all right, that was cute last weekend. Now I want to see the best basketball teams in the country square off against one another. And, Scott, that's exactly what we're going to get tomorrow night, and it's going to be absolutely electric. So my take is I cannot wait because this is going to be high-level competition, and I hope folks are ready for it.
Yeah, I don't understand. I feel the same way. I want to see great basketball, and of course here in Utah, we're really interested in some of these players with our Utah Jazz purposely winning by losing, and they hold the worst record in the NBA and higher probability that they get that #1 pick. So there's a lot of eyes out here that are paying attention. Talk me through the matchups. So you got Auburn in Florida. What do you look for there? What do you like there?
Well, this is a rematch. Obviously, these are two SEC opponents. Florida actually won at Auburn earlier this season. Auburn didn't lose much at all this year. They actually lost. This is the only one of the four teams, I guess I should say, that they actually played each of the others. They lost to Duke at Duke back on December 4th in the ACC-SEC Challenge. They lost to Florida at home on Saturday, February 8th. That was 90-81. And then, good grief, they beat Houston earlier in the year. That was the plane fight game, which is hilarious. But as for this specific matchup, it's really intriguing because Florida has a ton of depth both in the front and backcourt. earlier this season, one of the most selfish moves that I've seen in a minute in college basketball is that Florida had some injuries in their front court. Alex Condon had an injury. He's their best front court player. And there was another injury. And so Micah Handlogton, who had been recovering from an injury, who had been redshirting this year, was like, all right, I'm taking off my red shirt. I'm going to play. I'll sacrifice a year of eligibility for it. Now, that means that Florida has a four-headed monster in the front court, but they've also got a ridiculous backcourt.
Right.
Walter Clayton Jr., obviously the guy everybody knows. But then you've also obviously got Elijah Martin. He's the guy on this team that's got Final Four experience 2 years ago with FAU. You've got and then also good grief, Will Richards. Sorry, his name escaped me there for a second. And so Florida just has it in the front and backcourt. A lot of capability there. They've knocked off high-level opponents all season. They won at Auburn. They won at Alabama. I mean, it's crazy, crazy stuff. But Auburn, I think a lot of people have forgotten about them because they just ran through the regular season. And then when they wrapped up the SEC, perhaps the toughest conference ever in the history of college basketball, they were just like bored, in my humble opinion, for a little bit there. And so lost to A&M, lost at A&M, lost to Alabama on senior night, and then lost to Tennessee in the SEC tournament. And so everybody's like, I don't know, I'm out on Auburn. They're not playing as well. No, they were just like, hey, somebody tap us on the shoulder when it's time for us to play. And now they're playing, man. Janai Broome is back, and Auburn is rolling. I have them as my championship team. I think Auburn gets some revenge for that game earlier this season, and the Tigers are moving on to Monday.
Ooh, I like it. All right, Duke, Houston.
Oh, this is a great one as well. Man, look, Duke is playing as the best team in basketball right now. The Cooper Flag ankle thing leading into the tournament was ultimately a big nothing burger, right? Like he's fine. It's great. The thing with Duke is they are so deep. I think people pay so much attention to Cooper Flag that they forget the fact that Con Knipple is going to be a lottery pick. Common Malawach is going to be a lottery pick. Oh, and by the way, Tyrese Proctor is shooting like 60-something% from three in the NCAA tournament. Like just everywhere you turn with Duke, they can beat you. They to me are matchup proof. The only thing that will probably beat them is either themselves or what everyone needs to know is the fact that Houston is the fourth leading three-point shooting team in the nation. They're sitting at 39.7% from beyond the arc. And so if they can bomb away, they have a shot to take down Duke. The problem, oh, my friend Scott, is this.
Please tell.
While they shoot so well from three, they don't take many of them. They're 273rd national in three-point attempts. So I feel like if they're going to want to try to win this game, they gotta bomb away from beyond the arc. They've only eclipsed 30 attempts once this season. I feel like that's probably what they need to go for. And you think like, oh, well, maybe they'll take some twos as well. Well, they're not really good from two-point in terms of percentage, and Duke is like second in the country in two-point defense. So ultimately, I think Duke wins this basketball game, but Houston is rugged. They are tough. Kelvin Sampson's teams are always ready to go. And so, don't sleep on Houston, but I really do think Duke walks away the winner in this game.
Don't leave any bullets in the gun, Houston. You got to fire your threes because there's no tomorrow. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to kind of see if there's a change up there or a different strategy and how each of the teams handle it. So who do you like in the finals then to win the whole thing?
Well, Scott, I always as somebody whose job it is to cover national basketball, I cheer for my bracket. You know why? Because that's when people don't come after me, right? if I make predictions and calls and they're wrong, then people are like, oh, well, I went with you, Isaac, and you were wrong, or here's my money down the drain, whatever. So I'm like, the best thing that can happen for me in my Twitter mentions is that my bracket can be right. And in my bracket, Auburn beats Duke in the national championship game, and that's what I'm sticking with.
All right. I like your conviction. I love it. So I used to play football in the NFL. I got a few burned betting slips of people that like, what was going on? You know how much money I lost because of you?
Yes. Stop throwing picks, Scott Mitchell. Stop throwing picks.
So, couple of questions, kind of here locally. You mentioned earlier all these Duke players that are lottery picks. The Utah Jazz looks like they're going to have the highest probability of getting the highest draft pick. Looks like they won't draft lower than 5. what are your thoughts on a potential draft pick, lottery pick for the Utah Jazz? Who makes sense? Who realistically think? And I'm not going to put any money on this. I won't get mad at you if you're wrong. Just so we're clear. I'm just curious. Who do you think makes sense for the Utah Jazz?
So, Scott, for me, in the lottery, I am very much always of the mind of best player available regardless of fit, right?
Okay.
And so for me, it's like I don't care if I'm sitting there at 1, but I don't need a power forward. I'm still taking Cooper Flagg. Like, that's the biggest no-brainer. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so I think it's a situation where we often see front offices, and I think this happens in football sometimes too, is that front offices often outthink themselves in like, oh, man, he doesn't fit with him. And it's like, you put your best players on the floor because positions don't really matter anymore in basketball, and you go win basketball games. And so for me, if I'm the Jazz or whoever else is sitting there in the lottery, if I'm at 1, I'm taking Cooper Flagg. If I'm sitting there at, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I don't care. Like, I'm going to take who I need to get. And so there are some really intriguing names to me. I mentioned those 3 guys from Duke, but there are a whole bunch. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, the 2 freshmen that were at Rutgers together this year. I like them both a lot. I like Dylan Harper better than Ace Bailey. There is the question of, so why didn't Rutgers win more? And that does give me a little pause. I got to be honest. I really like VJ Edgecombe, the shooting guard from Baylor. He really, really came along throughout this season. He's going to be top 5 somewhere. Kasparas Yakichonis, who's the big 6'6" guard from Illinois, just does a little bit of everything. Like this year, he averaged like just shy of 17 points, over 6 boards, and over 5 assists a game, and a steal a game. I mean, it's just like he does everything. He's got that requisite NBA size that I'm looking for. I really like Trey Johnson from Texas. He is just a bucket. He knocked off Kevin Durant's freshman scoring record at Texas, if you can believe that. Derek Queen from Maryland is a big that I really like. He's got great footwork. He had that game-winning shot for Maryland over Colorado State, yes, in the NCAA tournament. Just so many names. And heck, how could we not mention right there in the state of Utah, Yegor Demon? I mean, this dude, yes, I feel like he went went down a little bit as the season went along, but his size. So I just got to mention, this is going to be a total name drop, and I apologize for that.
Please,
but the
drop the
studio
name.
work I've been doing during the NCAA tournament, Gordon Hayward of Butler fame has been part of that as well. 14-year NBA pro, just told me over and over and over again how much he loves Yegor Demon's game, how successful he thinks he's going to be in the NBA. And so, look, I don't think the Jazz will fall as low as Demon's going to go. I think he's more in the low teens somewhere. But if that's the play and that's where it's sitting, I would snatch him right up.
Yeah, Jazz actually have multiple picks this year, so there could be a possibility that might not be bad. Alex Jensen, of course, a longtime NBA assistant, well respected in the NBA, made the choice to leave the Mavericks, and now he's the head coach at the University of Utah. He's still with the Mavericks through the playoffs. What kind of impact does it have where he's no longer going to be there, but he still has an obligation to be there? What kind of impacts that have on him getting started, recruiting, everything with Utah?
Well, all you got to do is look down the road a little bit at Kevin Young. I had these exact same concerns last year for BYU of like, oh boy, the transfer portal's already open. Are they going to be able to get things? Well, I think things turned out just okay for BYU right now. The question is Utah going to operate at that same level with the same finances? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it can be done, and we've seen the opposite of that happen as well. For example, I'll use Miami as an example. Jim Larinaga, their head coach, stepped away around the turn of the new year, and Miami hired Duke assistant Jay Lucas to go down there. He actually left the team after the regular season was over to go down there to start getting going because the transfer portal opened on March 24th, the day after the Sweet 16 was set. And so I think we're going to see examples of both of those things happen. I think the key for Coach Jensen is to have other, like when he's got some away time or, where he's just off, like he's got to be able to start putting some time into that. The problem is, like, how do you balance that time? How do you affirm to your current employer that you're still all in and doing the things you need to do as a coach? How do you affirm to the University of Utah and the athletics department, like, yes, I promise I'm doing work to get things going, but I got to finish this. And that man, that's a tricky balance, Scott. I don't know how you balance that well, but I think a lot of probably nights of fewer hours of sleep for Coach Jensen right now.
Yeah, because you want to do a great job. You want to get off on the right foot. Sure. I'd be going nuts if I was one place and I was going to be heading in another. Is this a trend? You mentioned Kevin Young at BYU and now Alex Jensen. Are we going to see more and more of these NBA type coaches coming into college ranks? It feels like it's happening to some degree in football as well, and not only the coaches but front office people. Alex brought in a general manager from the Sacramento Kings to be the general manager of the Utah basketball program. So is this just kind of a one-off thing or wherever it fits, or is there a trend happening?
I feel like it's often cyclical like this, Scott. So before this trend, we had seen a lot of schools – excuse me while I clear my throat. I'm so sorry. We had seen a lot of schools hiring alumni and former players to be their head coaches.
Right.
There's a whole litany of them. John Shire in the Final Four right now, played for Duke. Right down the road from him, Hubert Davis at North Carolina, Juwan Howard at Michigan. We had Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. We had Chris Mullen at St. John's. On and on and on. There's a bunch of those. Some of those have panned out. Others have not. Chris Mullen is no longer at St. John's. Patrick Ewing, unfortunately, that just went poorly at Georgetown. And so, yes, we've now seen both Big 12 schools in the state of Utah do this. Of course, it's completely escaping my mind right now, but there is another power conference team that also just recently hired an assistant coach to come, an NBA assistant to come be their head coach. And so I think it is. We've at least got three of them. And here's what I think often happens when you get things like this that are successful, because obviously I think this is the Coach Young hire at BYU is clearly this year went really well. Next year with DeBanza coming in and who knows if who's going to stick around and what that'll look like. But I think then athletic departments can sell that to their money and to their hiring to say, look, this went so well at BYU, it makes sense. Why don't we try it out as well? This guy that's been at the NBA level, that knows what he's doing, that both has the cachet to say, hey, I've been at the NBA, I can get you there, but then also has the coaching smarts that come down from the NBA as well. I think all of that is great selling points.
Isaac, I've really enjoyed our time together. I feel smarter because of the information you've shared, and it's been really enjoyable. And I hope you go enjoy some barbecue there in Southwest Missouri.
You know what? My wife told me I get to pick dinner tonight, so maybe that's the play. Hey. Maybe our Braves will finally get in the win column tonight. At least they didn't lose yesterday, Scott. That's the good news.
Yes. Go Braves to win, go Jazz to lose, and that's a good night. All right. Thank you so much, Isaac. Take care.
My pleasure, Scott.
All right, there you have it. Isaac Shade, of course, the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Good stuff. Fun to talk to. When we come back, it's the tank race. We're going to get an update. This is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. All right, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean. Watching Shedeur Sanders throw to Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter here on the television. It's the pro day over in Colorado. Interesting stuff, fascinating. But for a moment, we're going to step away from our fun Friday, football Friday, fantastic Friday, to get to some fantastic news about the tanking efforts of the Utah Jazz. It's time for a tank race update. Take it away, James.
So this is, as our listeners have hopefully come to expect, this is a longer form of the tank race because I give you what to watch for in the weekend as well a little bit. Plus,
bonus coverage.
You asked a question earlier this week that I did not have the answer to about tiebreakers in the lottery too that we'll get to in this tank race. So if anyone else had the same question, stay tuned for that here. Let's start with, as we always do, what happened the night before. So last night, Wizards unfortunately could not put together a win streak.
And the Wizards.
They lost to the Magic. Their Magic was not as good as Orlando's. The T-Wolves beat the Nets. More bad news as far as the secondary tank goes. And some bonus ones that factor into that secondary tank. Grizzlies beat the Heat. Warriors beat the Lakers. That's still a three-way tie for sixth place in the West, those three teams. Update the standings here in a sec. What's going on today? Jazz at the Pacers, as we talked about with Andy Larson earlier of the Salt Lake Tribune. That's at 5 o'clock on KJazz. Hornets hosting the Kings. The Kings have not been good lately, Scott, so that's a winnable game for Charlotte.
Ouch.
Pelicans at Lakers. Definitely not a very winnable game for New Orleans. You expect the Lakers to beat a bad team at home. And then a bonus one that factors into the secondary tank. Clippers just ahead of that three-way tie for sixth. They're hosting the Mavs, which, again, we're keeping an eye on because of Alex Jensen. Yeah. When can he come here and start full-time as head coach of the Runnin' Utes? Coming up tomorrow, T-Wolves are at the Sixers, and then a couple of those bonus games that factor into the secondary tank. Clippers host the Mavs again, and then deja vu game for them, and then Grizzlies at the Pistons.
So with the T-Wolves, they're not going to be less than 8. Right?
Yeah, they will not be less than 8. So
we need the play-in game to they need to lose in the play-in, right?
Yeah, we need to make sure we're rooting for them not to be in 6th so that they have to play in the play-in tournament, which, again, not likely that they're going to lose 2 games in a row in the play-in tournament, but that at least gives you a chance that they might not make the playoffs. 6th, you're in the playoffs automatically. So, yeah. Looking for these are the most important time for the T-Wolves to lose as far as the secondary tank goes for the Utah Jazz. And then coming up on Sunday, Jazz are in Atlanta facing the Hawks. That's, of course, Quinn Snyder, head coach of the Hawks now, so a bit of reunion there. Once again, Hornets are hosting the Bulls. Wizards at Celtics. Yeah, that's not going to be a win for Washington. And then Pelicans hosting the Bucks. Bucks starting to play really well. Did you see Giannis, by the way? 37, 17, and 20
He
last
looked really
night.
good. He
I
looked
love
really
Giannis.
good. Yeah.
Love me some Giannis. Standings update. Jazz, last place still at 16 and 61. They're a game up on the Wizards, who are 17 and 60. Hornets, 19 and 57. 3.5 games back at the Jazz. Pelicans 21 and 55, 5.5 games back. Still within striking distance to get in that all-important top 3, bottom 3 of the league, that is. T-Wolves, as we mentioned, they're still tied for 6 with the Warriors and Grizzlies. Just 9 days left in the regular season, Scott, so it's coming down to it. And then I'll address your question.
I want to know.
What happened? You want to ask it again?
What happens if 2 teams tie with the worst record?
2 teams tie with the worst record. So this is really interesting. I thought there would be head-to-head tiebreaker policy here. It's actually a random drawing that they do, Scott. They do a random drawing by a league official. Basically, put some slips of paper in a hat or however else they might come up with doing a drawing here. Whoever's name comes out, they get the higher pick.
And this is done in Secaucus, New Jersey?
This is done in Secaucus. At least last year, this is what they did.
See, that sounds nefarious right there. We're going to do this in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Yeah, which the reason
I got a friend here. You're going to take care of it for me. I got a friend.
You see? Secaucus is where the replay, where the
instant replay is
instant
done.
replay headquarters are done. And I'm trying to think of replay center. There you go. That's the term. That's where the replay center is. It's kind of another headquarters for the NBA. So that's probably why it's been done in Secaucus before. Now, that's as far as I know. That's how they did it last year, unless there was some rule change.
Come on.
That's probably how they're going to do it again this year. If the Jazz, for example, tie with the Wizards for the worst record in the league. So let's hope. Jazz, just don't let it come down to that. Just lose the rest of your games, and you will not have to. Your fate will not have to be done by a drawing.
Everything's under your control. You don't have to hope or pray for someone. The secondary tank, different deal, but the most important tank, you have control over.
Yeah, it's already a random drawing with the ping pong balls. Don't subject yourself to another random drawing before that. So, yeah, there you go. That's the answer to your question there. And then some draft pick scouting. If you want to look at the Final Four in that lens, Scott, starting tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it.
Duke's got 3 lottery picks, as we heard from both Andy Larson and Isaac Shade, our last 2 guests here on the Sean O'Connell Show, who did an awesome job for us. Cooper Flagg, of course, everyone knows him. Con Knippel, he's a guy looked at like 7, 8, 9, 10 range right now in most mock drafts.
Mm-hmm. Really
good kind of Austin Reeves type player, really good shooter, good ball handler, secondary playmaker type guy. The Jazz will not fall that far down, but if that's a guy that falls out of the lottery, that would be a guy that you could do a lot worse than Con Knippel. He's probably not falling out of the lottery, though. And then Common Malawach, he's their starting center who's a really good rebounder, shot blocker, kind of alley-oop guy, rim runner type guy that we've seen in the NBA as of late. He fits that mold really well. He might be, as Andy Larson brought up earlier this hour, he might be a guy if the Jazz do fall to 5th in the draft, if they end up with the league's worst record, that's as far back as they can fall. Or if they end up with the 2nd worst record, they fall to 6th. That might be a guy that the Jazz would look at is Malawach. And he's playing again for Duke tomorrow against Houston, 6:45 tip on CBS. And then for the Minnesota pick, there's one guy in the Final Four that factors into that, according to Kevin O'Connor at Yahoo Sports. Not the former Jazz general manager, Kevin O'Connor, by the way. Another NBA analyst, Kevin O'Connor, much younger. He has the Jazz taking Auburn freshman point guard Tahad Pettiford, who I really like. So I think that would be a really good pick for the Jazz around pick 20, which is 17, 18, 19, 20, which is where that Minnesota pick looks like it's going to land if they make the playoffs, lose in the first round, or if they lose in the play-in. So, well, if they lose in the play-in, it'll be much higher than that. But it looks like it's going to be around pick 20, and he's got Tahad Pettiford. So that's a guy you can watch coming up tomorrow at 4 on CBS as Auburn takes on Florida. If you want to do some draft pick scouting. Jazz
All right, great stuff. I really like it. So a lot to look forward to. Not only scouting, but tanking and secondary tanking and just all kinds of fun stuff. Alex Jensen.
So much tank.
Alex Jensen watch, so things are good. We're going to take a break now. Right around the corner, though, we're going to talk some spring football up at the U, along with Red Rocks took care of business. We're going to do that with Sammy Mora. When we return, this is the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. All righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network and Utah's #1 sports talk. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean. I do a show called The Down and Dirty. It's from 10 and 11 here on ESPN 792.1. Check it out in the morning. It warms you up for Sean's show. That's my job. You can also listen to us on the ESPN700sports.com, ESPN 700 app, or your smart speaker. Just tell it to play ESPN 700. You also can catch us on YouTube at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. And, of course, that old podcast form, ESPN700sports.com or on the ESPN 700 app. Just search for the Sean O'Connell Show. Is it me, or does it feel like Steph Curry, no matter where he has the ball on the court, that he's going to score? Like it just looks like it's just the strangest thing. I just keep watching him, and I watch these highlights, and it just feels like Steph Curry is like this epitome of like confidence, and just I'll shoot it from anywhere, and I'll shoot it like not in desperation, but with purpose, and it just always seems to go in, and it's just fun to watch, and it's just like he feels like he's just toying with everyone, like they just don't know what he's going to do, where he's going to go. It just really brilliant basketball by Steph Curry. So fun. All right, right now joining us is Sammy Mora, who's the editor and Utes writer for UteZone.com. Sammy, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
Well, it's funny. People keep asking me that on the show, and I say I'm living the dream, right? And it's not a nightmare, so I can't complain. It's good. A lot of stuff happening on the Hill here. Let's see. We have the Red Rocks. They actually took care of business last night. They're in the region final, which is tomorrow. Avery Neff wins her first all-around of the year. This a surprise, or has she kind of been upping her game?
Yeah, well, and Avery also, for those who are unaware, Avery missed three or four meets earlier in the season. Mid-January, she suffered 2 sprained ankles versus Iowa State at the Huntsman Center. And, there was a lot of questions whether or not she would even be back this season. And I think she missed, my math is correct, I think she missed 3 meets, and she was already back. It wasn't a limited role at first. She started out on bars, did bars for a few meets, then added beam back. And then just recently, a couple weeks ago, she brought vault and floor back, putting her back in the all-around. So she's just unreal as a gymnast. With 2 sprained ankles, you would kind of assume that, maybe she's done for the year and stuff like that. But credit to her and her determination, credit to the Utah staff for helping her. But she's back, and it looks like she has not even missed a single beat.
Who needs to step up in the finals here? Clearly, Avery has done that, and I mean, there's a lot of other great players on the team. But who else needs to come through in order for Utah to move on to the Nationals?
I think you're gonna need to see Grace McCallum, maybe take another step forward. She had a 10 on bars last night, which is massive for this team, and she put up a big score on floor as well. But her vault and her beam, left a little bit to be desired. So you want to see a little bit more from Grace in that aspect. I also want to see a little bit more from McKenna Smith. She had an off night last night. She took a couple steps on landings where you usually don't see her take steps. And then probably my last one is I'm gonna go with Emily Morgan. She's one of the veterans on this team. She's a senior. She only does 2 events for the Red Rocks, but bars and beam are she's a specialist on those 2 events, and she's had the ability to put up some really big scores throughout the season. But there's also been some weeks where she has looked less than ideal, and so I think for her it's going to be need to have her show up a little bit more on Saturday as well.
So what are the chances of reaching the finals for the 49th time in a row?
I think I like the odds. This side of the bracket was not too extremely difficult for the Red Rocks, but I think that, Saturday's meet's going to be another great test for this team. UCLA, number 5 in the country, you beat them earlier in the season at the Huntsman Center, but, every meet's a new experience. Denver, who pulled the upset over Stanford last night to claim their spot. their two best meets of the season have happened inside the Huntsman Center. So that's kind of I don't want to say that's like concerning, but also at the same time, like, something obviously is clicking for them if they're able to compete at such a high level on the road. And then, Minnesota rounds out the four teams on Saturday, and Minnesota's one of those teams that like hasn't gotten a lot of love this year, but they have some very, very, very good gymnasts and some very senior led events. So I think that it's gonna be probably one of the toughest meets of the season for the Red Rocks. But the good thing is if Utah can compete and compete the level they had last night, but lock in on some landings, minimize the bobbles on beam, stuff like that, I think they'll be in a good position because honestly, you just have to be top two tomorrow to move on to nationals. And then when you're in the national semifinal, again, you just have to be top two to move on to Final Four on the floor. So, I like their odds. This regional's not the worst. It's not, as the Gymternet aptly calls one regional every single year, the death regional. And thankfully this year, it's not the death regional.
Yeah.
So.
Should be fun. Should be fun to watch, and it's just incredible. Why are they so good? Can you put a finger on why they're so good?
I think Utah just has had such a long legacy of great gymnasts. Greg Marsden did a great job with building this program from the ground up, and I think Utah fans love their gymnastics. I always say that every school has that one niche sport that they love, and for Utah, it happens to be gymnastics. And there's so many Olympians that have passed through this program. There's two on this year's current team, in Grace McCallum and Emily Morgan. It's just such a long lineage of great gymnasts, and I think that's part of the reason why they're so good. It's just it's just that one niche sport that Utah has, and it happens to be gymnastics. But I think it's been one of my greatest honors to cover some great gymnastics teams. Because these are some fantastic athletes, and they're fantastic women, and I've just loved getting to know them and getting to work with them throughout the years.
Yeah, it's been an impressive thing for me. I was at Utah in the '80s, and when Greg was there, and just tremendous. And so I just marvel, and I tip my hat to this consistent success for so long, because I think it's so hard. To continue to do, and just it's a very impressive thing. Some breaking news. Is this kind of breaking news here? I guess the Running Utes just secured a commitment from Terrence Brown out of the transfer portal. He averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists at Fairleigh Dickinson this year. So Alex Jensen, I guess, is doing some work, even though he's still with the Mavericks. What do you know about this?
I literally was getting ready to publish a story about this right before I came on the show, but. It's a great addition. I think landing him, he had some big time programs coming after him in the portal. West Virginia was there, TCU, Texas Tech. There was another handful of other programs that were going after him. We'll have a full breakdown on his style of play and everything later on UteZone.com. But it's to get that. It always takes the first commitment. I think that's the big thing. Is we've seen that be a reoccurring thing across all sports. Football, basketball, as soon as you get one, the dominoes kind of start tending to fall. So, big props to, Chili and Wilcox and the other guys. Well, those are the only two currently on staff, but for them for getting this commitment in place. But, it's a good start. It's a very good building block. And, with Keanu Dawes announcing he's withdrawing from the portal and returning to Utah, those are two really good players that you can build a team around, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a concern of people with Alex still being with the Mavericks. We've been talking about it a little bit on the show today, and you get concerned. You get behind the 8 ball, or you miss out on players, or you can't get started until you're here. So I think if you're a Utah fan, you got to be excited to see. Okay, there's positive things happening, even though Alex isn't here. I'm sure he's got his pulse on things, but the fact that he still isn't here and seeing these positive things happen, I think, is a really good thing. So I like it.
Oh yeah, it's good to like you said, even though there was some concern about with Alex not being here yet, how things are going to shape up and stuff, and obviously he has a lot of faith in the guys he's already hired so far to come in and start making these moves, because the transfer portal doesn't wait for anybody. It doesn't matter if
No,
you're
it
still
doesn't.
coaching your NBA team or what. The transfer portal does not wait.
It's a cruel mistress, that old transfer portal. Oh, yes. And we want every sport to win, right? We want all of our sports at the U to win. So come on, let's go. Everyone wins. We like it. Speaking of winning, spring football is rolling along and seems to be getting into a nice stride here. First scrimmage is coming up here on Saturday. What are your initial thoughts about spring football, where it is, and what's happening?
Spring football is one of those things where it's like I tend to take things slightly, not with just like one grain of salt, but I don't put too much weight into them,
Right.
because you can always circle back to those stars that shone really bright
Right.
during spring football and then didn't do anything during the season. I think the biggest one everyone's kind of like screaming internally at me right now is Charlie Brewer when he was 16 for 16 in the spring game and everyone thought he was the heir apparent.
He looked good.
But yeah,
He looked good.
But I think with spring, I think for a lot of this team, it's about, growth, development, learning. I think for, the defensive tackle room specifically, like you have a lot of unknowns in there. You only bring back 3 scholarship players, and none of them have had sustained starts and stuff. They've been, Dallas Vakalai just came on back half of the season after returning from his mission. Aliki Viamahi has been banged up throughout his career. And then you have Jonah Lea'ea, who hasn't played much at all, but, coaches have always been so high on him and excited for him, especially now that he's up to, like, a playing weight. So, for a lot of these younger guys, it's about, like, that depth, that, like, the experience, getting used to the system. There's a lot of new faces. I think Kyle Whittingham said by the time the fall season rolls around, I think there's going to be like 40 or 41 new players on this team from top to bottom. That's a lot of guys who need to get acclimated to systems, cultures, everything like that. And then when you add in the whole, brand new offense thing, there's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some things that don't make you happy when you look at them. But, I think with Utah, this is the type of program that if there's bumps right now, they'll get ironed out by the time the season starts. That's just the type of program that Kyle Whittingham runs. And I think that's like, it's a fair assumption to be like, yeah, things aren't going to be perfect by the time spring football ends.
Right.
But the chances of like things being like solidified early in fall is a lot more likely than I think people tend to think it is.
It's interesting your comments. First of all, if you have a lot of vowels in your name, you're a good defensive lineman, right? That's just a lot of vowels, good defensive lineman. That's the way I look at it. And then your grain of salt thing is so good because it's like a salt shaker. Maybe let's take spring football with a whole salt shaker here, and it reminded me back of the time when I played professional football, and you would have all of your spring like little mini camps and do all that stuff. They call them OTAs now. And man, some guys looked amazing when they were in shorts, right? Because everyone's in shorts. It's all, and they're just like world beaters. And the minute you got to the fall and the minute you put the pads on, it's like some of those like guys in shorts just disappeared. And it was like, and it kind of the Charlie Brewer thing, because I thought the same thing with Charlie when he was here. And I think we were all a little fooled by that. So it is hard to really get a total evaluation of what's happening. But speaking of players developing, one guy, so I was at practice yesterday, and one guy jumped out at me, and I'm like, he looks different, and that's Lander Barton. Do I need glasses, or did he grow? And he looks just, I don't know, leaner. I'm expecting something out of Lander Barton. What do you think about where Lander is and what we can expect from him this year?
I'm actually really excited to see Lander again this season. Last season he wasn't playing at the level that fans are accustomed to him playing. But I think the thing is, when Perrine went down, those green dot responsibilities came over to him. It was something he, was trying to get used to. And then by the time when he started to piece things together, Perrine came back. He had to shift back to the role that he was at originally. And I think that, he I think he's gonna be back to his old ways this season. Having Leilani back with him, that's a great 1-2 tandem, and then you add in John O'Hall at the same time. Like that's a really good three backer group you have. That's a really
Right.
great core to have. But Lander, I think Lander expected a lot more of himself last year too, and I think that's also kind of what might have contributed to some struggles. He had such pressure on himself that it might have, forced him to play tight instead of, the loose Lander that we're so used to that, is just causing havoc left, right, and center. But I'm excited. We only get 20 minutes of viewing at practice on Tuesdays, so we don't really get to see a whole lot at times. But I'm really excited to be at the scrimmage tomorrow, and kind of like actually get eyes on players. Yeah, and like again, I said, like, it's spring football. You can't put much weight into it, but at the same time, like there's still weight to be carried on some of these things.
So from what where do you think the quarterback position is? Since we didn't really know a lot about Charlie Brewer, where do you think Devin Dampier is? And another guy that's been kind of impressive is this Bert Ficklin, and this freshman quarterback. Of course, he's a lefty. He's kind of shown some promise in practice. Where do you see these quarterbacks right now?
Obviously, I think Devin has a firm grasp on that QB1 role, coming with Jason Beck from New Mexico, an understanding of the offense, stuff like that. But I think that's kind of like a lock at this point, unless something like, knock on wood, let me find a table.
Right.
Knock on wood, something happens. But I think I'm more interested in that QB2 position right now. I think that's my thing that I've been, that was one of the things I said before spring ball started. I said that QB2 battle is going to be very interesting. Isaac Wilson's had some moments that, Jason Beck has called him out, Kyle Whittingham has called him out of having good performances. But, like you said, Bird Ficklin, the true freshman from Oklahoma, he looked good in the little bit we got to see him on Tuesday. Whittingham even said, like, things are starting to click. He's starting to process things. Like, he's starting to make that step in the right direction that they needed from him. And, if he continues to progress this way, I wouldn't be shocked to see it become down to, him and Isaac. But then also, there's Brendan Zerberg as well, the Oklahoma transfer. Haven't heard much about him so far during this whole process, but he has a relationship with Jason Beck, stuff like that. So he could be, that we're waiting for the offense to click for him, and, could come down to those three for that QB2 position. So I think it's still going to be really interesting. I know, like, there's a lot of PTSD around Isaac and stuff like that, but this offense is a lot simpler than an Andy Ludwig offense. So I think, it's gonna be interesting to see how he continues to develop, and then what Bird and possibly even Brendan do as the spring rolls on.
It may be too early to tell, but you're smart. You know all this stuff. What position, or is there a position that will need bolstering after spring and in the next transfer portal window?
I think the most obvious one is defensive tackle. If you can find somebody who has experience, but also, is the right culture fit, because I know people are like, we just need to add somebody. And, like, I agree, but at the same time, you need to find someone that fits the culture, and you need to fit someone that's going to fit the role that you need them to fill. So I think defensive tackle is by far the biggest one. I wouldn't be shocked if Utah brings in another wide receiver or another running back. But other than that, I think, personally and you might bring in another corner now, given how the departures the team has had so far. But, at this point, I think majority of the position groups, I think, are pretty stout and pretty set. But, those are probably the top four. I think that if you do make a move in the spring portal window, it's going to be in those position groups.
So you got a chance to watch the first scrimmage here on Saturday. What are you most excited to see?
I'm just excited to get more eyes on the offense, honestly. Hearing defensive players talk about, how it's exciting to play against, and how it's electric and how it's all of these things. That should excite fans, honestly, because if anyone's seeing this offense up close and personal, it's the defense. And so I think that, getting eyes on the offense is going to be it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see more of Devin Dampier, see what he's made of type of thing. And I know, you don't touch the quarterbacks during spring, but, I want to see his arm. I want to see his decision-making ability, stuff like that. Stuff that he showed that he can do on his film from New Mexico, but I want to see it, up with my own eyes. That's basically it, live. Those are probably two of the biggest things, Utah defenses are always going to be stout. They're always going to be strong. They're always going to be X, Y, and Z. And so I think that the defense is less of an unknown outside of the tackle position, and then possibly the corner position outside of opposite Scooby Davis. But I'm excited. I'm honestly excited to see the scrimmage on Saturday. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And the quarterback, the statistics have shown they have such an impact on the game. So Devin Dampier playing well and looking good is going to make a lot of Utah fans excited. Sammy, thank you so much for joining the program. Hope you have a great rest of your day here and this weekend, and great stuff. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you have it. Sammy Mora, editor and Utes writer for utezone.com. Go check her out. Speaking of Utah spring football is here. When ESPN 700, 92.1 FM has all the coverage you need. Brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Head to ESPN700sports.com for details. Around the corner, hey, Dwight Howard, big tall Superman basketball player. He got swindled, and the guy's going to jail for it. I thought it'd be a fun conversation to talk about what it's like to get swindled as a professional athlete here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network and Utah's #1 sports talk. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean today and a few times in the future. So had a lot of fun today. It's Friday. It's Fun Friday. It's Fantastic Friday. It's Football Friday. But we're not going to talk about football right now. But we do talk about football a lot because, let's face it, it's the most important thing on the planet. At least that's what I thought when I was a player. I found out later on that there were I think at the time it was 600 million Chinese that didn't even know anything about footballs. But in my world, it was the most important thing. This was a really interesting story about Dwight Howard. So Dwight Howard, he's Superman, longtime NBA player. And, of course, he got swindled. And who hasn't gotten swindled in their lifetime? But someone who actually swindled Dwight Howard, I believe he was cheated out of about $7 million in some bogus scheme that he bought into. And this guy was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in prison. And this brought up to me something that happens like to every athlete, like whoever has existed.
Are you about to tell us when you've been swindled for $7 million, Scott?
It wasn't $7 million,
okay.
But now here's what happens. And every year, and I used to hate this. When you go back to football camp, you have all these stupid meetings, and they're league mandated meetings, and you sit there and they tell you all of the different ways that people are going to rip you off, and they say, look, you're young and you're dumb and you have a lot of money, and so that's just a big old target. And as an athlete, you think you are invincible. Like literally, I mean, he thought he had kind of the Superman moniker, and you think you're Superman. And so, you're pretty confident and you do have money, and everybody comes at you. Everybody comes at you. And in fact, I was told, Richie Smith, who was the Smith Supermarket, a longtime Utah booster, takes me to dinner right after I get drafted, and he said, "I just want to take you to dinner. I couldn't even do anything. Couldn't buy you lunch. Couldn't take you to dinner when you're an athlete. But now that you're not here, I want to take you to dinner." So he takes me to Lakai, right? This really nice restaurant. And I'm a redneck from Springville. I don't know, I don't know which fork to use.
You didn't even know how to pronounce Lakai.
No, I didn't. No. So it's bad. And so I'm super uncomfortable. But he told me something at this dinner that I never forgot. He said, "Tell everybody no." He goes, "You're going to get hit up. You're going to get hit up by, everyone." And so he said, you can say no politely. And he actually gave me he says, "Look, just tell him, I have all my money invested and I just don't have any free cash, so I'm sorry. I just can't help you out."
So then you told him no. When he inevitably
he
didn't.
No, he would never do that. He said, "I learned just say no, right? Say no to drugs, say no to swindlers, say no." And it was funny every year because we'd have these meetings, and they would actually show you. They did these live action sequences to kind of keep the players. So they'd have actors come in. You're in this big auditorium, and they role play actual things that happened to players.
Oh.
And it was, and everyone's kind of laughing, and then they go, "These are things that have actually happened to players."
So they set it up like make you think that it's just made up scenarios.
It's not a real thing. It's just it's like, you're watching a play or something, and it's fiction, but it's like it's real life stuff. And I used to get so mad at these meetings because I'm like, this does not pertain to me. This does not pertain to me. This does not pertain to me. Now, where I got burned, because you all get burned, I remember having a conversation with Thurl Bailey. I go, do basketball players get taken advantage? He's like, "I can't tell you how many guys I know that are broke." And Derek Coleman showed up at bankruptcy court with a Rolls Royce and 2 fur coats. Because if he had it on him, it was his possession. They couldn't take it from him. And that's all he had, And here's a guy that made $100 million. So it's a very, very common thing. Now, in today's world of sports where it's just monopoly money, you're a backup quarterback. You're going to make $40 million in your career, and you don't even play. And so it'll be interesting to see if, and I say if, I should probably say when somebody burns through $250 million, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they're going to do it. You know, they're going to do it. And it would be like heartbreaking and just heart crushing to me to have these people, burn through all this money.
I think you're right though when you first said we've all fallen prey to scammers. We've all gotten swindled, and if you haven't already, you probably will at some point in your life.
I just will.
I can't say that I've ever had millions of dollars to lose to a swindler, but I have made some dumb decisions with people who approach you on the street, think you have a good cause, and like, oh, here's a few $100 that they're asking for, and then immediately after, I'm like, I just threw away $300. What was that?
Yeah, that was wrong, James.
That was wrong.
You should just quit right now. Go out the door. I'm embarrassed. Actually, I saw a documentary on this about panhandlers, and they would follow them around, and they're like normal people, and they have a normal house, and they go, I make 80, 90 if I'm in a good spot, maybe $150 a day, and they're like, people give me the money, and I don't really say anything, and so the guy tries it out, and he puts a sign up, and he says, I just need a beer. That's that. He put that sign out, and he goes, I made as much money with that sign as I did, I'm broke, I'm destitute, the poor, tugging. He just said, I need a beer. And so he, in fact, I think that's what I'm going to do as a part-time job. I'm going to go out on the street, and I just like, except I don't drink beer. So I need a Dr. Pepper. Could you please give me? I just need one.
Swig.
Yeah. If I need swig, you'd make $1 million if you put a swig sign out. Like in Utah, it's like the swig. I shouldn't even say this. I'm not going to say it. So anyways, swig is good, right? Or crumble cookies, all those bad things for us here in Utah. So where I ran into the biggest problem, for me, the biggest problem was family. Like I could spot the swindler. That wasn't hard for me. But your family, oh man, like the worst in the world, and where it's really bad. So this is my advice to all of you people out there that make Monopoly money. I know there's probably 10 of you that listen to the show. When you have family, it's a gift. Okay? Don't get suckered into, hey, I'm going to pay you back. We're going to work on a payment program, right? And I don't want your money, and I'll pay you back every red cent. I will pay you everything. No. Like it never happened. Like and every member of my family took advantage. And so for me, because I thought it was a loan, right? And it wasn't a loan. And if you think it's a loan, and if you want to have a relationship with your family, you have to forgive the debt. Like you just have to. And I did, and I have. And it took some time. It was not an easy thing to do. Like at all, it was not an easy thing.
I think that's another universal thing, Scott. Whether you're the person who has been in a position, unfortunately, to have to ask your family members for money, or you being a family member where you've had someone that just always needing help that way. That's rough from both sides, right? But it's I can see and I've experienced how hard it is to say no to someone who you love that wants that money, or to just when you have given them that loan in air quotes to say, well, I'm upset that you just wasted the money, but I'm going to forgive you anyway.
So I have an interesting story, and I can kind of laugh at it now. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at it when it actually happened. So I had a car. I lived in Detroit, Michigan, and one of my sisters lived there. And she goes, I want to buy your car. I go, okay. So she bought my car from me. It was a Ford Explorer.
Of course it was a Ford.
Well, in
Detroit, right?
Are you kidding?
Playing for the Lions.
The Detroit Lions.
Playing for the Ford family.
Yeah, the Ford family is like, you except for if you're Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders had a Cadillac.
Okay, he was allowed.
And he had a deal with Cadillac, and it's like, just kind of,
It was a conflict of interest here?
I wouldn't
not
have
for
done
Barry
it. Personally,
Sanders.
I wouldn't have done it, but whatever. So she buys this car from me. She's making payments. And one night she comes by my house and she's going to have dinner. And she pulls up in the driveway and she goes, "Hey, I want to show you my new car I got." I'm like, "Okay." So I go out in the driveway, and no longer is my Ford Explorer there. She bought a new car. And I'm like, "So how did you pay for this car?" And she goes, "Oh, I just traded your car in." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but you owe me money on the car, like it's still my car." And she goes, "You don't understand how my life is," and that's just how. And so it ended like that, and I was just like, "Wow, okay." So for a while that was kind of hard, and I thought a little bit brazen, but apparently, so you just kind of have to give those things up. And then
I like what you say when you're giving money to a family member, you got to consider it a gift, not a loan.
You have to, or you'll be really mad because what it makes you feel like is like, "Why you just ripped me off?" And that's not a fun feeling to have. Now, here's another thing that I found to be true is don't get into things that you don't know anything about. Like, don't get into a business and have someone else working, like they're going, "Oh yeah, get in this business with me, and here you bring all your money," because that's all I'm really interested in. I'm not interested in your business acumen, or I'm not interested in your ideas, or or running the business, or knowing the business. And so many athletes get caught up in getting into things that they don't really understand and they don't really know. And if you're going to get into it, and there've been a lot of players who've had tremendous success post athletic career, but they got with the right people and they got into things that they understood and they learned about, and you don't want to like get an education and pay all this money for an education on a business and then have it fail, because that's just a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing, and especially with how things are today. It's like these athletes, you don't have to invest. You don't have to go get a business. Like, just invest your money in tax-free municipal bonds or something where you've already made your money. All these other people are trying to make money, so don't do it. But I can see, and I got into that a little bit, and I have some things. If you want, I'll tell you a story quick. I don't. That's only up to you, James.
I'm always up for a Scott Mitchell story.
This is a sad story.
Oh,
I'll tell you how I lost $1 million.
In that case, maybe we need.
I'll
to
tell
go
you how
break.
I lost $1.5 million.
Just kidding.
Would you like to hear about that?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go.
So I lived in Orlando, Florida. I had retired from football, and I got into developing residential real estate. And everyone I talked to, everywhere I looked, I was like, it seemed, the real estate market in Florida was just insane. And I got really sound advice. I actually met with an economist, what's the projection of the real estate market? And they're like, "Oh, it's going to be a boom for the next 15 years in Florida." And so I'm listening to these people. I got a really good law firm, real estate firm. I got a land planning firm. I really surrounded myself with some really good people. And it was kind of fun, right? And here's this is a crazy thing. So I start looking for pieces of property, right? And I didn't go small. The first piece of property was 1,000 acres. Okay, think of Daybreak.
Yeah.
Like, I went and purchased Daybreak, right? So I'm going, right? And it's fun. And I have two national home builders that, because you have to go through, like, you have to change and you have to get all this work done in the city and the state and the county to entitle the property and change, and develop and you develop the property, right? And so I had an agreement with two national home builders, and they're gonna, they're like, "This is cool. We're gonna partner with you, and I'm gonna make a lot of money." And they show up. They had a due diligence period. They show up at the end of it, and they say, "Sorry, we can't do it. Our home office has said they think the market's gonna change." So they just go, we have to put a pause.
We don't want Daybreak here in Florida.
No,
is what they said.
So I'm going around because I'm really confident, right? 1,000 acres. So I go meet with a dairy farmer. This woman, she's 80 years old. She has 500 cows. She milks 500 cows by herself twice a day. I'm sitting in her kitchen. She has like these rubber boots on that are covered in manure, right? And I'm sitting next to her, and I'm talking for 45 minutes, and she has an unbelievable piece of property, another 1,000 acres. And it's right next to a place called The Villages. And they advertise for The Villages in Utah. It's the largest growing over 55 community in the country. Her property was right across the street. It's a home run, right? So I'm meeting with this woman. 45 minutes into it, she looks at me and she goes, "I'm happy to sell you my property." And I'm inside doing cartwheels. I can't believe it. She goes, "I know who you are, and I watched you every Sunday." And she goes, "I'm a big NFL fan." And she goes, "It was the only time I didn't milk cows was on Sunday, and I watched the NFL." I'm happy to. So I'm doing cartwheels out of her house. I'm like, I'm gonna be so filthy rich. I have 2,000 acres of land. So we're negotiating. We're finalizing our contract with her, and 10 days later she dies.
Oh no!
And I'm like, what? And so I'm like, well, now her kids. So I'm trying to talk to her kids, and her kids want to sell the property for like $50 billion. Like it's like, and so I lose that.
No.
So then I had another 1,000 acres, and so and it was really fun, right? Because you go talk to these farmers, and they're like, and it's in Central Florida, this is Orlando, and so people were either Florida fans or Florida State fans. So, and I was neither. I was a Miami Dolphin, so everybody liked me, and I could get into every door. Anyway, so I have my third 1,000-acre piece of property under contract, and the market just crashed. It was 2008, and it just died. And so so I had money that I had put down as deposits that goes hard. The money is non-refundable after a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And then the development costs, because you have to go pay all these people to do, you have to pay for gopher tortoises and all these kind of things. Anyway, so I lost $1.5 million, and I thought I was doing everything right, and I really did. But sometimes it doesn't. Let's just say if that all worked out, James, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So it's good that it didn't work out, and here I am. No offense. I mean, this is like, I love what I'm doing, but if I had $400 or $500 million, nah, I ain't doing this. I'll just tell you that right now.
You might be buying. You might have bought your own radio station.
In fact, that's a question I have. I want to know the truth. If you're Deshaun Watson and you get $230 million guaranteed, how much motivation do you have anymore to play professional sports?
I mean, we've seen it with other guys, right, Scott, and other sports.
I don't know that I would have motivation. I'm just that's just crazy money. I can't I'm not that good. I'm not that I'd probably get hurt too.
We've seen guys grind and work the way they should, play with that passion that they need to play with up until they get their big payday, and then once they get the payday, their careers go flat or they go downhill because they lost their motivation, right? So it's a fair question about Deshaun Watson,
no,
for sure.
We're human. Like, we got to get influenced by all that money. Okay, don't give your money to anyone. Say no to drugs and to everybody, and you'll have all your money.
And remember, if you give money to family member, it's a gift. It's not a loan.
Yeah,
I like that, Scott.
And if you need to lose $1.5 million, I can help you. Just if I got a deal for you. All right, check your bracket in our $1 Million Bracket Challenge. A perfect bracket wins you $1 million. Go to ESPN700sports.com and click on the $1 Million Bracket Challenge post at the top of the homepage to keep track of your picks. ESPN 792.1 FM's $1 Million Bracket Challenge is brought to you by Budweiser, Clearwater Distilling, Overtime Cards and Collectibles, and Big Willie's. Around the corner, I think we have do we have crosstalk today? I think we do. Yes, we do. All right. This is the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. All righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Utah's #1 sports talk. Scott Mitchell here in for Sean. We're kind of wrapping up this show. I don't know if I said too much in the last segment, James, but look, there's a lot of facets and fascinating things about being a professional athlete, and I really like to share it with people. I get asked stuff all the time, and so I'm very open about my experience, and I hope who knows.
Hey man, as
maybe
far as what,
maybe I'm too open. I don't know.
As far as what you shared, I mean, that's all up to you. And if you're comfortable sharing that about your near misses, you almost had a fortune for your great grandkids. My gosh,
3,000 acres of land.
That's up to you. Yeah, it's
and the market really did tank in Florida. Like it was about 10 years before it even came back at all.
Fascinating story, though. I appreciate you sharing, man. I hope our listeners enjoyed it too.
I hope so.
It's a whole. I mean, when we're with people like you, Scott, when you're talking about having a chance to make millions or investing millions in something, having those millions of dollars to invest, multi-millions, whatever, it's kind of fun for the rest of us who've never had that and maybe never will have that to just kind of hear these crazy stories.
Yeah, and there's never been a question I've never really said, okay, it was fun. Like I lived my childhood dream. In fact, on the show today, when that conversation with Gifford Nielsen, I mean, I'm a 10-year-old kid and I got to go to a professional football game and I got a game ball, and that was cool. And I got to meet all these players, and it was just really, really an exciting thing for me in my life. And and I've had it, to me, I've had an interesting life. I mean, the thing I think it was most interesting when I went on a reality TV show, that was interesting, right? Like, who gets to go on a when you go to fat camp? Like I was on the Biggest Loser, and that was actually quite a cool experience. So, joining me in the studio right now is Spence Checketts. The drive is coming up here in a few minutes. It's time for some crosstalk. Crosstalk is brought to you by Burt Brothers Spring Into Savings. Get your car ready for the season with $69 tires, $50 off service tickets, and $79 alignments with purchase of 2 or more tires. Don't wait. These deals will not last. Stop by your nearest Burt Brothers today. Burt Brothers does it better. Hey, the Saudi investment fund I guess it didn't go through. They tried to their partnership is still in limbo with the PGA Tour.
No, they just made an offer, and the PGA Tour said no. So $1.5 billion offer. They're going to come. They're going to come to an agreement.
So how does it look then if they come to an? I mean, do you have 2 tours that are different? Do you have?
Yeah,
does it allow players?
I think LIV is here to stay.
So LIV does its thing, kind of like the European Tour, where they have the European Tour and players can kind of play in both places and all over.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
I mean, they just have too much money. They're not going anywhere. Yeah. The deal they'll make with the PGA will allow the point system to be spread to LIV, and therefore their better golfers will be able to qualify to play in signature tournaments. So you know how the DP World Tour, you can play on the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour if you want. This will open the door for players like Koepka and Phil, if he wants to or whatever, to play on both tours and just kind of pick and choose.
Don't you think that's better?
I do. I mean, I'm not a LIV guy. I wish LIV would go away.
Okay.
But it's not going to. Right. So it's time to stop wishing that would happen and just kind of view this as a partnership in the same way that, the DP World Tour or whatever, you can kind of pick and choose. European Tour, you can pick and choose wherever you want to play.
So why don't you like LIV golf? I haven't really gotten into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's a selfish thing. Like it took away some of my like I used to love Dustin Johnson, watching him play. I mean, and I'm a tour guy. I believe that the PGA Tour, well, a couple of things here. Like ultimately the PGA Tour is now paying their players bigger purses. So LIV served its purpose. Yeah. But without the PGA Tour, without the governing body, none of these players would have ever been able to have the life that they have. And I'm also one, Scott, that, I'm a capitalist, whatever, but I also am one that believes that enough is enough at some point. Like, how much money do you really need? Right. Like, if you're a professional golfer and you're already worth $250 million, what's another 50 or 60? Yeah. So just I look forward to the day where, because I used to love watching Brooks Koepka play, right? So a lot of the guys that I liked watching play went to LIV. Now, like Patrick Reed, go ahead.
You can have him.
And you can have Phil, quite frankly. Yeah. Phil turned heel, man.
Yeah.
You know, so this will get done. This is not like a hard no. This is like that's not enough money for this partnership.
Okay, good. Because I do want to see those players as well.
For sure. You were on The Biggest Loser.
I was.
I always wanted to be on the Real World Road Rules Challenge.
Okay.
But I never was.
Yeah. I didn't actually want to be on the show. It kind of found me.
How did that happen?
So I was coming to Salt Lake to the spring game.
Okay.
So I lived in Mapleton at the time. And I just looked on KSL.com for the weather. Like, what's the weather going to be like for the spring game today? And there was this announcement. There's all these events. You know, you got to leave early if you're coming to downtown Salt Lake because they had the Salt Lake Marathon and they had the spring game. They had a couple other things. And they have an open audition for The Biggest Loser at KSL. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I click on it. I'm reading it. And they go, we're looking for former athletes, like high school, college, or professional. And I go, shoot, I fit all three of those. And I'm fat. Like I should
4 for 4.
I should go do this.
Wow.
And they had an online application, so I filled out the application. I come to the spring game. My family's with me. I say, hey, I'm gonna go audition for The Biggest Loser after the game. We drove down to Salt Lake and to KSL Broadcast House, and I got to the front door. I said, if nobody's here, then I'll go in. And there was nobody there. And I literally went to step out of the car and I go, what am I doing? I don't want to go do this. This is so stupid. So I just left, and I got a phone call 2 weeks later because I'd filled out the online application. They go, now this is you, right? You're the football player, and I'm like, yeah. And I told him, I said, I'm so glad you called me because I regretted it from the time I left the audition. I wish I would have gone in the door. I was just like, you know, because I was like embarrassed. I was like, I don't want to see people, you know, publicly, you know, show kind of your vulnerability.
Sure.
And something that you kind of struggle with. And so I was like, but then I regretted not doing it. And I had an unbelievable experience. Like I didn't feel like I was on a reality TV. Like I was having this whole personal journey that wasn't even a part of the show. And it was fun. Like I had a good time. I lost 120. Like I was.
You lost 120 plus pounds.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. I gained it all back. And I'm in the process of losing it again, but it was a great experience. It's a really good experience.
How are you feeling as you're going through the process of trying to lose it? You feeling good?
No, yeah, because I'm just doing it like real health. You know, I it's like for me, it's a goal of 10 pounds a month.
Yeah,
and so I eat. You know, just focused on how I eat. And for me, it's like, you know, I get older. It's like I want to enjoy my life. You know,
sure.
I want to be an active participant in my life. So I've just really made a focus on making my health. You know,
good for you, man.
Yeah,
I would imagine they saw your application. Like, wait. A guy who played in the NFL wants to do this? Because I'm sure they were getting a bunch of applications from like JV football bro.
Right. Oh no,
that put on
we had a few
40
of those
pounds,
on the show.
Freshman college guy, you know. But I'm sure they didn't get very many. Like this guy actually played at the highest of levels.
Actually, so we had a U.S. Olympic 2-time gold medal softball pitcher.
Okay,
and she was awesome. She was on the show. Damian Woody, who was with the Patriots,
now with ESPN. Yeah.
So there were a couple of, you know, legitimate athletes, and then there were, you know, JV soccer players,
sure,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to win. Like I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of, because it's a percentage of your whole body weight.
Okay.
And it's like, and I couldn't beat these people.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you got to get rid of them then. So you got to find a way to get rid of the fat people, right?
Oh.
That's how you win. That's how you win.
Okay. Because now this feels like bullying. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, and so in my mind, I'm trying, and they were sneaky because there was one lady, she got to the last two, and I didn't realize how heavy she was, and she was really short, and she hit it well, but so she could lose half of her body weight, and just really, you know, and win. And so I tried to get rid of all the big people.
Who won?
A guy named Toma, and he's from Chicago. And if anyone could win it, like I'd be happy for him. He's a great guy, and some of them I didn't really care for, but Toma was an awesome guy. It was a fun experience though.
James, if you could have been on one reality TV show, I feel like James might have a sneaky good singing voice, like American Idol.
Right.
I couldn't be on American Idol. Maybe I could do a William Hung impression on American Idol. No, mine would probably be Amazing Race.
Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Travel the world on CBS's dime.
That'd be fun.
and do these amazing challenges, whatever, and even super stressful environments. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Plus, it was one of my mom's favorite shows.
Oh, cool.
So,
Right on.
Yeah.
See, I would peg you as an American Idol contestant, but you'd be a country singer. I would see.
I did grow up as more of a country fan because
Yeah.
my parents loved country, so that might have been what I would sing if I was on American Idol, but I'm not a good enough singer.
There we go. Yeah, I was always a Real World guy, or The Hills, Laguna Beach. I really should have been on those shows.
Yeah,
the greatest reality TV of all time.
So when I'm on The Biggest Loser, they film all these shows like you're kind of all in the same area.
Okay.
And we would be in vans. They'd take us out to different locations, for things we were doing, these challenges. And we'd drive by the Bachelor house. So we weren't the Biggest Loser and the Bachelor house were not far from each other. And so and they were in production, you could see all the things.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, what you need to do is you need to do a Biggest Loser Bachelor version where the Bachelor is someone who's lost weight and they're looking for love, but they're going to find it through all these people who are overweight. And they go through a process of you have to find love from inside out. So it's not this. So they go through like
good luck with that.
Yeah.
What a dumb way to approach that.
The Biggest Bachelor. How about that?
Well, no, because they lose the weight. You help them lose the weight.
Love from the inside out.
Now,
love is blind.
Okay, I had a dream. I had a dream.
Oh, do I want to know what it is?
No, you do because this is funny.
All right.
So in the dream, the producers from The Biggest Loser called me. And they said, we're doing a naked Biggest Loser.
All right, Scott.
And they said, the contestants are having a hard time getting comfortable being naked. Could you please come here and help them out?
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Because one of the things they said on the show is like, you got to surrender to the process. And you got to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, right? That doesn't mean you need to be nude on television.
So, this is a dream, right? It's a dream. It's not real. So in my dream, I go and I says, look, let me show you how it's done.
If this ends with you being naked, I don't want to hear any more about the dream.
No, I was totally naked. I said, look, it's not a big deal. Like you just got to learn to be and it was look, I was half naked on The Biggest Loser. You show up for the weigh-in in a pair of shorts.
Okay.
That's it.
But you have shorts on. That's much different than being fully nude.
Yeah, I'd rather show what's under the shorts than my fat belly.
You know what, James? Take your boy to break, dude.
I think we got to go on to the drive, Scott.
All right, fine.
Bye, Scott.
How fun are you guys?
Weirdo.
All right. Spence Checketts is up next. The drive is right around the corner. This is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. So glad you joined me. Until then, we'll see you then.